This is 365 Sports.
The Sooners are spread out as White's back to throw. Gonna go deep, got a man open, touchdown Oklahoma, Travis Wilson.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Gundy, handoff again. Sanders, running room, look out, could go. One man to beat, he does. Touchdown, Oklahoma State.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Winky going for the end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Marvin Mims!
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
And he throws for Glenn, and he's picked off. Charles Woodson.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on a Friday afternoon, the second day of Sweet 16, and news involving Colorado football here in just a second. And yes, we will dive deep into the first battery of games in the Sweet 16 last night. And my God, what a night for Texas Tech, along with others who advanced. And the Big 12 needed that with the win by Tech late last night. We're going to hear a comment from Grant McCaslin, Terrence Oglesby, Field of 68, his thoughts about last night and tonight. And then also Chris Level will join us, broadcast analyst for Texas Tech basketball, in both football and also basketball. But let's start with this. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, this is a big deal. Deion Sanders has received a 5-year, $54 million contract extension through 2029. In 25, his base salary increases to $10 million, among the nation's highest paid, among the highest 10 paid coaches in college football.
Yeah, and look, this is the money that you're going to have to keep paying him to keep to keep him happy and competitive in the market. Now, if you look at a lot of the other $10 million coaches, he hasn't accomplished, coaching-wise what they have. But the thing that he has that they don't is that he's Deion Sanders and they're not. So there's the cachet there, and he's brought an energy to the Colorado program that had been gone for pretty much 2 decades, honestly. And so he's worth it. It's the going rate for elite coaches. I'm not sure if he's quite in that category yet as a coach, but as a program builder and someone who's doing some exciting things. I mean, you got to keep them competitive because every time a job opens up at a bigger school than Colorado, everyone's like, well, we got to hire Deion. Deion's the guy who can fix our school. Now, whether the ADs are saying that, there's always going to be a lot of clamoring about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's deserved it based on the excitement level and the financial implications and just the other peripheral types of things that maybe we don't look at when you're thinking about successful programs. We immediately go to, well, how many games did you win? And he's won some games. He's won enough games to get into a bowl game, which is the first time they had done that in a really long time. They've only done it 2 or 3 times in the last 20 years. So, or maybe a handful of times in the last 20 years, but it's been scattered. And so he's got them all rowing in the same direction, and he's got the fan base thrilled with what's going on with the program, and that deserves to be recognized, and so does the winning. So when you do both, as they did this past year, whereas last year is more of just the hype and the energy and the excitement, and then like, what could this turn into? Well, this past year we saw what it could possibly turn into when they're at least in the running. Now, they ran out of steam, there's no doubt about that, but it was still a very nice year. 9 wins, lost to BYU in the bowl game, so didn't finish the way you wanted to, but definitely a step forward and definitely a much better mark than I think probably the entire national media thought that they were going to have based on – I mean, y'all remember what was being talked about with him this offseason?
Oh, yeah.
Y'all remember all the talking
Cowboys.
about Deion this offseason? Yeah. And, man, that got quiet, didn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like I was one of the only ones, actually, that was like, well, come on. Like, I'm not saying I'm claiming anything, but I definitely pushed back on that quite a few times last offseason. So it's just funny to see the change in tune, and that's all, due to the games they won. So that's not a narrative any longer. He's just a figurehead, not really a coach. You can't say that. So, things are going really well for them. Obviously, there's some massive questions for them moving forward, but good for Colorado to put their money where their mouth is and to invest in something that's obviously a big boon for them right now.
When the story came down that he took the job at Colorado, it was kind of out of nowhere. And there were a lot that thought, this is crazy, and that he wouldn't win. The first year they had the great start, even with the record not being good. Last year they were better and got to be pretty good. And good for him, good for Colorado. And the fact that here they are, what Rick George is the AD, he's the one that in a way went on a limb. He's given them more publicity than they had since back, Rick Neuheisel and Bill McCartney. And, of course, McCartney won a national championship.
I mean, they had a good year like 10 years ago with Mike McIntyre where they won 10 games. That's the last time they've won 10 games in a really, really long time since I think it was like right at the start of 2001.
Gary Barnett was another coach on it. Yeah, you're right.
And so they've had a couple of moments here and there, but nothing like the energy around that program right now. And I'm not even talking about the criticism when he was hired. It was like last summer when all the previews and stuff were coming out, and there was a lot of dogging on the way they recruited. There was a lot of dogging on just whether he was a legit coach or not. I remember that vividly, and obviously he answered a lot of those questions. Now I know this offseason will be like, well, what about is it post-Shador and post-Travis Hunter? And that's fair, man. I mean, you lose stars like that, but there's no reason to believe they can't keep bringing in big-name guys and talented guys, and obviously that's what they're banking on. So, give them the resources necessary, keep them happy, and keep Colorado football on the national radar, and that's what they're doing.
So we were going to start with the NCAA tournament, and we should, but that news came earlier this afternoon, and good for Colorado. Deion, congratulations for that.
I mean, good for the Big 12, too. I mean, to have somebody that brings eyeballs to the league that nobody else really is able to bring right now, no team's able to really bring consistently. I mean, there's several schools that have their dedicated fans and put up good numbers, but I don't think there's anything as polarizing. I know there's nothing as polarizing as Deion in the Big 12 right now, and I think that shows out through the numbers as well. So in terms of a guy that hooks you in and can bring you some attention and therefore bring others attention when BYU beats Colorado in a bowl game that maybe other people don't care about because he's not the coach of the other team, that's where he's got value beyond, just what happens there in Boulder between the hash marks.
Bracket Cat, you caught it right when I did. What about Gary Barnett? No, a 2001 team that beat the hell out of Nebraska, then beat Texas, won the Big 12, had a hell of a year, ranked, I think, maybe inside the top 5 or 6 before it was all said and done, or in the top 10. And, yes, he's been on the show a handful of times.
Yeah, if I'm Colorado, I want to make sure that we're competitive in the market. The other thing is you are also, with this news, you're buying confidence in future players that, like, okay, he's fairly compensated. So the other thing is you got to battle against, and probably Deion has to battle against it more than anybody, the negative recruiting that goes on. Is like, look, man, you want to go to Colorado, what are you going to do? You're going to be there for a year and a half.
That was last year. It was wait till Shador and Travis Hunter graduate. He's leaving.
He's going to leave. Or, like, look, he's there, but the minute that somebody comes along and pays him $10 million, that's where he's going to go. It's what he did with Jackson. That's why he left Jackson State, because Colorado was more money. Well, he's going to leave Colorado because Colorado's not paying him $10 million, but, Ole Miss will, if Lane Kiffin, somebody like that would, so he's going to go there,
Craig made a point. Great news for the Big 12.
It's really great news for the Big 12. And look, he's worth his weight in gold as far as attention goes. I mean, he makes money by just being awake, so it's not really about money to him. It's about stability and what you're going to provide. Now, the other thing is, all right, now make sure we keep going with NIL and doing that so that he doesn't have to just always hustle all the NIL deals for everybody,
All right, so the Big 12 also got a much-needed win last night by Grant McCaslin and the, my God, Red Raiders, who I gave up on them. I did. I bet you did. In fact, I got to share this. Kim Coulter, yesterday, very late, sent me a text that said, what a disappointment, or something to that, note. And then I said to him, it's still early. There was like 11 minutes and 45 seconds or so to go. They were down 16 at the time. Now, it didn't look good. And Calipari in Arkansas, they had a good thing going. And then next thing you know, my goodness, it all started because of a 4 offensive rebound possession from Federico, and they ended up scoring. It still only put them within 11, but it seemed like it just turned on the motor, and Arkansas could not breathe in the end. And Texas Tech and Grant McCaslin with a huge win. Here's a couple of graphics on them. First of all, there's that Texas Tech basketball Twitter account. Makes sense. Believe, give, compete, advance. There were a few that said toughest team wins. There's that one too. There, at one point in that game, on ESPN, they had a 1.9% chance of winning the game. And there's the tweet about that 1%. As they came back and also won that game.
Calipari, it's funny. We've talked about in football with Mario Cristobal, like falling into some bad habits at the end of games. Do you remember the 2008 national championship game?
Was that against Memphis?
Oh, that was against Kansas.
Kansas, that's right.
He was the coach in Memphis
in
in 2008.
Yeah, that's right.
2 things happened that allowed Kansas to get back and win that game. One was Memphis could not make a free throw at all. The second thing that happened was they were up 3, and he decided not to foul, and Mario Chalmers buried the game winner, or the game tire.
He's the one that extended the game.
I still remember Justin Timberlake, a Memphis fan when he was hosting the ESPYs that year, walked up to Mario Chalmers and he's like, "Hey, Coach Calipari, can I just show you something?" And he put his hand in Mario Chalmers' face. He goes, "Watch me, like that. Just do that," So sometimes you fall into that, and Tech took advantage of it. Now, you can debate the merits of fouling up 3 in that moment, but it was a very as soon as I fell asleep. So as soon as I saw the highlight, the first thing I thought was, man, that's a lot like Chalmers. That's a lot like Chalmers. And look, if it's not a club in his bag, it's not a club in his bag. But then Tech comes back and fights through and wins in overtime.
Yeah. Craig, did you stay up for it?
Yeah, I mean, I never went to sleep. So, yeah, I was up for it. And I think the big thing he's getting questioned for today is not calling a timeout before the final shot and just letting his, guy get the ball and roll with it. And, hindsight's 20/20, should have called a timeout, set something up or whatever. The conversation is in Arkansas today. It's a negative one, that's for sure, and it's one filled with a lot of fury based on the reactions immediately last night, and rightfully so. That was a game you felt like was in hand, and it was going to be this banner night for Arkansas basketball, which obviously invested huge to bring this coach into the fold, and to get to the Sweet 16 is cool, but I mean the Elite Eight was right there, and something they should have been celebrating today. But credit to Texas Tech for, just not giving up, just continuing to fight and continuing to make big buckets down the stretch. I mean, the way they polished that game off there at the end, made some really tough baskets to put it away. And I just was very impressed. And I know Joey McGuire coined the whole West Texas tough thing, but I think that just sort of applies to Tech in general. And McCaslin really leans into the toughest team thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know that you can really – everybody works hard. Everybody's got tough people, so I don't know that you can always, pull that card and always claim to be the toughest. But when you have people that believe in it and fight that way, then you can win a lot of cool stuff, and that's what they did last night. They were the toughest team when all was said and done. They just kept fighting and swinging, and then eventually – landed some huge blows that turned the tide and eventually put that thing away. And it was mightily impressive, and it was awesome to watch because I have a sister who's a Tech grad, and she was nowhere in my messages. And all of a sudden at 11:30 or whatever the hell it was last night, here's this exclamation point riddled text message oh, my God, can you believe this? And, that was pretty cool to see. And I can only imagine what a lot of other Tech households were like watching that unfold last night, because it was amazing, and it was huge for that program. And again, I don't want to make everything about league stuff because this is not the way it really always works, but the Big 12 desperately needed that. That was a massacre without that win last night. I mean, that was the nightmare scenario we talked about yesterday when we said, well, you could get 3 teams in the Elite Eight. You could get one team just still standing there left to play on Friday if things go badly, and it looked like that was what was going to happen, was the worst-case scenario. And then Tech pulls that out and really, saved the night for the league, I feel like, because if we were walking here today and you'd gone 0 for 3, that would have been a bitter pill to swallow for your Mark.
All right, speaking of your sister, Daniel, son-in-law, David, this was this morning, very, very early this morning. David, where was the clock when you turned the Tech game off last night? That was absolutely insane, and I can't think of another time when I saw Jennifer act such a fool. Excited. She's a Tech grad. She was excited.
Absolutely. Now, I want to address another thing that just was said on this show. Craig said he never went to sleep. The fact that you even asked him if he was awake at 11 p.m.
Yeah, he's the late night owl.
You're like, if Craig goes to sleep before 11 p.m., he has COVID or something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're exactly right.
You watched that thing late night? Yeah, I was watching Good Morning America before I went to bed. No, I'm kidding. I didn't go that late.
I did get an email from you at about 8 o'clock this morning. So you,
I mean, sometimes
you got to get up and pee sometime.
Yeah, exactly right.
So a couple of things. We're going to hear from Grant McCaslin, a short comment from him in just a second. We'll also hear what John Calipari said about the last seconds of the game once Tech took the lead. But here is Grant McCaslin following the win and the comeback against Arkansas.
Obviously, what an unbelievable college basketball game. And, in watching Arkansas play on film, it just seemed like every game that they were in, there was these pretty dramatic runs of teams finding ways to either catch up or lose the lead. And they're such a dynamic team. Coach Cal's doing an unbelievable job with their belief, and they got basically their full roster back, even though it was limited. And so we knew going into the game that, man, it was just going to be difficult to defend them. And the way they started the game and the shots they were making, we made some decisions to go under ball screens, and it just felt like we were too passive. But that's to their credit, man. They came out and punched us good. And I just kept telling these guys in timeouts that we're going to win the game. And D5, I don't know what he started the game out, 0 for quite a few from 3, and Christian was 0 for, and I'm just telling them we're going to make them when it matters. And I believed it with all my heart. And that's Red Raider basketball. It doesn't matter what the score is, what's stacked against us. I think we got down 16 at one point in the second half, and telling JT we got to start getting stops and rebound. And I thought one possession was just huge, was Federico in there just getting, I don't know how many offensive rebounds he got on that one possession. And I thought that showed the grit of Red Raider basketball. And Chris ended up making a 3 at the end of it, and that started the real belief that we were going to win the game. Man, what a tremendous atmosphere, and it's an awesome opportunity to be on this team with these guys, because nobody believes more in each other than this group, and it's really a blessing to be a part of.
So they're now into the next round. We'll get to that and also the game tonight in a moment. Craig brought up Calipari and Arkansas. Here was John Calipari when he was asked about why did you not call a timeout on the last possession?
If I may go back one more thing. I mean, the last possession there in overtime, any consideration to calling a timeout there?
Yeah, but in my career, I let that go. Let the guy get to the rim. They're not going to foul you. You know, and with that kind of time, just me. You call a timeout, now you got to worry about what he's doing, how he's playing, the inbound, what are you doing? So I usually let that go. Now, because it ended the way it is, yeah, I wish I would have called a timeout. But 99% of the time, I let that go. Because now I know what they're doing, they know what we're doing. That's why we did it. End of the half, we wanted to go at one guy, and we did. Really, he made a hard bump on DJ that got him kind of off balance on the shot. But, you know, it was what we wanted.
Could tell he's devastated, but hell of a year.
Well, he could smell
he
could smell the Aaliyah 8. I mean, it was right there for the taking, and the next thing you know, you find yourself in overtime and then losing the game. And so I'm sure he was just at a loss, really, once the cameras were turned off. But he's been there plenty of times. He's had lots of big losses and lots of big wins. But, yeah, that was a brutal loss for Arkansas. I mean, no doubt about it. They were booking flights, you know, or not flights because they're still in the same spot, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
They were gearing up for the next game, and instead it's Texas Tech moving on, and what a massive win for them. And obviously, like I said, it matters for the league a great deal because we'll get to the other results from last night. But that was big for Grant McCaslin and that program just for themselves alone. And yeah, a lot of people were mightily impressed. I know I was last night watching that because there was no reason to believe that was going to be the way it ended.
Well, no, there wasn't. I kind of dozed off and then woke up about the time when the ESPN alert came up on my phone when I went to check the score. And then there was Alabama. BYU with a hell of a year under Kevin Young, a team that could pretty much keep up with anybody when it comes to scoring, and they were trying to do that. And then just a landslide of crazy. Good, unbelievable. This is who Alabama's been most of the year. A record 25 threes made during their win against BYU for them to move into the next round against Duke, who beat Arizona late. And this is nuts. Tech the other day shot 46 threes or whatever. That was a record. They made 25. Alabama did last night, which leads to this in Nate Oates. This is what he's done since he arrived in 2019. 4 Sweet 16s, now 2 Elite Eights. A Final Four. 2 SEC regular season championships and 2 tournament championships. He has taken them to the very top, very close to the veriest of all tops, and what a run it's been for Bama with Nate Oates.
Yeah, and that game against Duke is going to have a million shots in it. I mean, it's going to be like that. Both those games were, in that region. If you liked defensive basketball, sorry about your luck, and you bought tickets to that thing. But if you like scoring, I mean, it was like 2 NBA games, honestly, with the way the scoring was going. So yeah, it was. They were both. That was amazing to watch. Where BYU played pretty well, and they didn't make near. Of course, nobody makes as many threes as that. That's a record. But they weren't making threes. They were keeping pace by dominating inside. Like they were going inside, making shots. They were keeping pace, and then once they did hit a three, they got a technical. It seemed like that was the momentum. That and the the whole face plant thing, which was rough to see for a second, but he wound up coming back in the game. So after that moment, like Arkansas just got too far ahead for BYU to come back without matching them 3 for 3, and then Alabama, and then Alabama just kept draining threes. So how can you catch up to that if they're just going to keep making threes?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's a mightily impressive resume by Nate Oates. There's obviously a big glaring omission right now that he needs to accomplish, but they're in line to do that. I mean, Alabama, based off last night's the best team I know we'll see Florida now and, whatever your feeling is on who the actual best team is. But last night, if you want to make a case for Alabama, it's really easy to do that. Now, you can't guarantee they're obviously going to shoot that well. night in and night out. But, yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow for BYU. What a great season, great run with Kevin Young. It's just getting started, so I think that's the exciting part is you made it to the Sweet 16 in year one. And now we'll find out if he's got a Nate Oates type run in him where he's going to reel off a bunch of big accomplishments in a short amount of time, or if it'll be a more sporadic. But I think you feel like you've definitely got your guy that's going to lead you to some pretty cool stuff moving forward. And in light of how that could have gone post Mark Pope, you could have made a bad hire. You clearly didn't. So I think BYU celebrates a really successful season, a really nice step forward for the basketball program, and a really bright future, especially when you already have the buzz of landing the top recruit heading into next year. So, hats off to them. But they just ran into, I'm sure this has been said a million times on various platforms today, a buzzsaw. I mean, they ran into a freaking buzzsaw. I mean, nobody was beating Bama last night shooting the way that they were shooting. And BYU played well, as Paul said. Like, that performance could have won a lot of games against a lot of other teams, but it wasn't going to beat Bama last night with the way that they were playing. So, just one of those where you chalk it up and you go, like, it wasn't even this wasn't our best game. It's like, no, that wasn't the problem. It's just sometimes you run into the better team, and they ran into the better team last night.
Yeah.
We have a couple of notes. Terrence Oglesby from the Field of 68 and CBS will join us on the tournament. Sam Kahn about 20 minutes from now. Also, Chris Level, who's, I mentioned, Texas Tech broadcaster, looking at the 50-50 chance, tentative, we'll get Reed Gettis, who was a part of those great Houston teams in the early 80s. That's a part of the show today. Mickey Spagnola and also Paul's top five as a part of our guest list. We got to get a couple more things out of the way. Paul, you going to add something else to that?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Now, so Duke won. We mentioned that against Arizona. Arizona played very well, but Duke just had too much. Cooper Flagg was phenomenal. And then, Florida. It got tight, and then they blew your doors off. That's what they do. They kind of hung around. Nice effort, but Florida eventually had just too much. They move into – so you have Tech and Florida, Alabama, Duke. And, golly, I can't wait. I cannot wait for those two games.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said a second, you make a case that Florida's the best team in the country. You make a case that Alabama's the best team in the country.
Auburn. Yeah.
Auburn's the best team in the country, and they just all happen to be from the same region and the same league, and so it's historic, no doubt about it. But Florida's just mildly impressive. I mean, they just beat the dog mess out of Maryland. That was not a very entertaining start to the night. Luckily, it didn't turn into that, although most of the night was blowouts.
It was close at halftime, or like right before, and then like after half, it was like, okay, crab 5, bye.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much just put the gas down and rolled away with that. So, yeah, I mean, Florida's looking really good. And then we've obviously talked about Alabama and BYU and Texas Tech and Arkansas. I thought Arizona played a really fun game, and Cooper Flagg was awesome, as you mentioned. I mean, the guy gets a lot of attention because he's a great player, and rightfully so. He was showcasing a lot of that last night. But so was Caleb Love. I mean, Caleb Love was freaking great too. Had some big moments, big shots, kept them in it, and that was a fun game. Looked like Duke was going to pull away, and maybe we'd have another just sort of blowout-style game. But Arizona was there at the end, trying to pull off the miracle upset, and just didn't have enough time, enough gas in the tank to be able to do that. But I thought it was a respectable effort, and no shame, no hanging your head. You just lost to a better team again, kind of like some of these other results last night, like BYU's. Like, hey, great season, you just lost to a better team.
Yep.
And there's no shame in that, and I think that was the case with Arizona as well against Duke.
Yeah, Caleb Love. Just this quick note, and then we'll get to Terrence Oglesby on the games and his thoughts. Caleb Love, first player with 35 points and no turnovers, playing against a number 1 seed since Michael Finley in 1994. Where did he play college ball? Finley?
Was he in Arizona? No.
I think he was at Wisconsin.
Okay.
I think he was at Wisconsin, Michael Finley. That's a guess, Craig.
I think it was Wisconsin. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I was pretty sure. You know how I am. I could always just get on Google like you're getting ready to do. But 35 no turnovers for Caleb Love, who had one hell of a career. And Terrence Oglesby, had a chance to visit with him from the Field of 68. Rob Douster is a part of that. Jeff Goodman and others. John Fanta, and his thoughts about Texas Tech, about last night, and about games coming up tonight, too. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. And by the way, that Terrence Oglesby will come up here just after the break. Petty Clinic, get in touch with him. Go to the website, PettyClinicLowT.com. Tell him you might have symptoms of low testosterone. Maybe you're not sure. 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, sex drive, ED, lethargic, energy, focus, sleep habits, whatever else. He will then set you up to get your blood work, get the results, and after that, let you know whether the testosterone level inside of your body is lower than it should be, or maybe really low. He can then give you a program as an option to get your testosterone level back to where it needs to be, where you want it to be, where it used to be, at PettyClinicLowT.com.
At Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, drive home a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab or Ram Lone Star Crew Cab, both with massive $15,000 off MSRP. Looking for unbeatable value? Drive home a Ram 1500 Tradesman Quad Cab starting at just $35,995, or upgrade to a Tradesman Crew Cab for only $37,995. These deals won't last long. Hurry to Allen Samuels today.
Come by, let's be friends.
Hundreds of things that can affect our sleep, but what's affecting yours? Sleep Doctor's Home Sleep Test brings the precision of a sleep lab into the comfort of home to help you get answers and unlock a lifetime of great sleep. Start now at sleepdoctor.com/TV.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Terrence Oglesby with me, field of 68, the second phase of Sweet 16. But Terrence, let's discuss last night. My God, what a comeback by Texas Tech and Grant McCaslin, the grittiness, the resiliency, and absolute meltdown for Coach Calipari in Arkansas. Your thoughts about what Tech did?
You know what? We kind of wonder how good has their offense really been. And Texas Tech has been awesome all year. 3 guys with 20 points or more, they can just turn it on at the right times. When you have that much firepower, it can lead to those massive spurts. So, you know, even towards the end of the game, for them to be able to get the lead finally and for Cal not to call a timeout, I actually think that was the best course of action. The more you watch it, and the more you've watched Cal, he's always been a guy who lets his guys play at the end of the clock. And if they call timeout, Texas Tech can scheme up something. So, you know, credit to Texas Tech. They've got legitimate players. And I think that people forget, like, just because they live in Lubbock, it's kind of hard to remember, and they don't get the notoriety that the Longhorns do or anything like that. But Texas Tech has been a basketball brand for the past, 10 years now, to be reckoned with. And they love hoop, and that team that Grant McCaslin has put together is here to stay. They're going to find ways to continue to be effective. But for Texas Tech, moving on, huge for the brand, and for Calipari, you know, nothing really out of the ordinary there, especially towards the end.
So, you know, Grant McCaslin, obviously, we know his history, what he did at North Texas. Now we see Ross Hodge going to West Virginia. McCaslin under the Scott Drew tree that's huge. And just your thoughts about, he's a rock star. And this is not surprising to those who know who he has been or the kind of competitor he's been as a coach, winning the national championship in junior college.
A rock star, great X's and O's guy, obviously gets who he needs in his assistant coaching tree, or not his tree, but like the people working for him now, rather. You know, the fact that he was able to get, what's the guy's name, Linder from Wyoming to run his offense. And you know, a lot of coaching today especially is very much a CEO role. And you have to hire the right guys, and he's done that. And he learned that from Scott Drew, too, is, hey, I need to hire guys that could eventually replace me if I'm going to have success. And I think that gets lost among a lot of coaches that feel like they have to be the boss all the time. He lets his guys, he empowers his guys, and to throw on top of the fact that he's just a terrific coach in his own right.
Alabama, my God. BYU can fill it up with the best of them, but this was just, they just got overwhelmed by Alabama, and of course they get those second and third chances as well. And I thought BYU, for the most part, played pretty well, but the thought about what Alabama did last night, record-breaking numbers of threes they made.
It's a lot easier to turn off a sprinkler than it is a fire hose. And I think what happened at the beginning of the game, Alabama was kind of sprinkling in. But the thing was BYU was going under everything. They said, well, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us without ball movement. We're going to let you shoot threes above the hash, and if you make them, fine. Well, problem is Alabama is more than willing to do that. After the first media or the second media, they interviewed Nate Oates. He's like, well, I think, you know, we're taking too many threes, but we're making them, so I'm just going to let them keep shooting them. I think they had like 17 threes to like 4 2-point attempts. Like, that's a crazy number, but it's Alabama and Mark Sears and LeBaron Flat. Like, they've got guys who can make those threes. So whenever you let that sprinkler get bigger and bigger, it gets a whole lot harder to turn the water off. And I think the fact that BYU was willing to consent some of those early, deeper threes to Alabama, it basically just turned into target practice, because once it rains, it pours whenever you play Nate Oates' team, and they found a rhythm, and it didn't stop for 40 minutes. It was really impressive.
Alabama now gets Duke. Duke has been, at the top for most of the entire year. There were thoughts about who they had played. Arizona, they're really good. And what Tommy Lloyd has, but Cooper Flagg was awesome. And now that sets up Alabama and Duke. Your thoughts about that one?
You know what? Duke going up against Arizona, if Duke is able to withstand a good Caleb Love game, I almost want to just shoo him in for a national championship. Caleb Love goes for 35, and it's like he's creating all these tough looks when Arizona had nothing. And Duke still found ways to win. I thought there was a 6-0 run right at the end of the first half that really changed things for Duke. Cooper Flagg comes down, hits a pull-up. The play before, they have a quick slip screen that ends up in a Con-Kniffel 3 at the top of the key that was just so perfectly run and still contested, doesn't matter. That Duke team is just really good. I think it's going to be a different challenge for Alabama. Duke's going to get up and pressure a little bit. They're going to extend their pickup point a little bit. I thought BYU was so reliant on their overall length that they were just like, well, if they're going to shoot over us, they're going to shoot over us, but we're going to contest. Well, Duke has that length, plus they're going to get up and pressure you because they're athletic enough to do so. So I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup. Cooper Flag is as good, if not better, than advertised. I had a game with, I did the Florida State at Duke game earlier this season. It was an electric factory in there, and those guys are just so good, big, and athletic that you almost don't do it justice while watching it on TV. That's how good they are. And Cooper Flag goes for 30. I don't know that anybody on Alabama's team can stop him, that's for sure.
Terrence Oglesby, Field of 68, at CBS Sports with us. A couple of more things about tonight's games. We have 4 games tonight. All of them have such intrigue, but I want to go straight to the one at the end because of the Big 12, who got the win with Tech last night late. They needed that. Playing Purdue in their backyard, the Boilermakers, and Kelvin Sampson, and what a run it's been for the Cougars.
What a run it's been for the Cougars, and what kind of draw did they get to be able to get Purdue in Indianapolis as a 1 seed?
Yep, I know.
Mike, that's crazy. That's crazy to even think about. But you know what? I love the defensive matchup between, Braden Smith and whoever they decide to put on him for Houston. Houston's so physical defensively. They have some tough shot makers when things break down. And I think that helps Houston because in previous years, it's been all defense. And then, they'd have to rely on a hard shot, but they didn't. There's some of the guys taking them were smaller. Now, LJ Crier, he can't quite see over the defense, but he can get his shot off consistently. And they've got some front court options as well. But it's going to be the defensive game. They are significantly more athletic than Purdue. And I'm not saying Braden Smith, he's a great athlete, but he's small. I'm talking Fletcher Lawyer. I'm talking around the perimeter outside of Braden Smith. I think Houston wins this game, and Kelvin Sampson makes yet another trip to the Elite Eight.
Terrence, I like the fact that March Madness has always been about the Cinderellas in the opening week. And, there's been a lot of discussion about were there enough that survived and all of that. But now that you look at what we had last night and who we have tonight, these are bangers. I mean, it'd be nice to see Cinderella somewhere, but aren't these just 8 straight bangers of college basketball last night and tonight?
100%. And let's be honest, too. This is what the ideal Field of 68 NCAA tournament first weekend goes like this. 5 upsets, a bunch of close games, your best teams advance, and in the second round, all those teams that pulled off upsets, they get beat, and then you get the big dogs in the second weekend. Mm-hmm. We didn't get the upsets, but we got the big dogs in the second weekend. And you had, the Alabama game wasn't close. I thought that was an anomaly. But, the other games, terrific ball games. And then you look at what we have tonight, I mean, it's almost like they get even better. So I think this is a best case scenario for the second weekend. Did I want a little less chalk in the first round? Sure. I think everybody did. However, there's so many times where we have a great first weekend. I mean, think about it. What was it, 3 years ago or 2 years ago in Houston, where it ended up being like UConn, San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, and Miami? It's not really what we want. Let's be honest. And I'm not trying to be like a big name guy or whatever. I played at Clemson. But it's one of these things where you want the best teams in the second weekend because those Cinderellas that come through in that second weekend, and there's been a couple of times where it's changed, sure, but most of the time they get thumped by 30. This weekend has turned out to be one of the best in recent memory as far as matchups are concerned. And to me, that makes for better basketball.
You have a tea time. You're about to have lunch prior to that. I love to play golf. I'm playing twice this weekend. I'm not going to keep you much longer. What is more pressure? Hitting the front end of a one-on-one where you have to hit both to tie the game as a player at Clemson, or a 4-foot putt for par early for maybe $1?
Hey, let me say this, Dave. I feel no pressure for 2 reasons. First one, with the golf game, let me address this situation real quick. I'm a horrendous golfer. Horrendous. I break 100, I'm happy. I break 90 on occasion, I love it. I don't feel any pressure because if I win, I win. I lose, I lose. I don't work hard enough at it to where I could really get competitive. So I'm going there to have a good time. I'm a good hang, bad golfer. That's how we roll. As far as 1-on-1s are concerned, no sweat off my back. I'd rather it be me than some of the guys I played with. I'm throwing teammates under the bus right now. Doesn't bother me in the least. In the least. I'm shooting 1-on-1s. You can go ahead and pack your bags. I'm sending mama home early. Those 1-on-1s are good. The putt, I'm not even going to bother to discuss.
Unbelievable, and nothing more exhilarating and frustrating once you get the fever, and you're going to get it when it comes to golf. You're going to get it. You're going to break 90, then you're going to want to break 87. And, hey, good luck with your round today. Enjoy the great games we have tonight. What a great weekend for college basketball. Terrence Oglesby, CBS Sports, and the field of 68. That's Terrence, joined us earlier today. Appreciate him on his round, go to play a round of golf and then do studio work the rest of the evening from last night's perspective and also the games coming up tonight. We're now joined by Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. Sam, thanks for your patience. We appreciate your time. What are your thoughts, Deion, getting paid and a hell of a deal for him in Colorado?
You're muted, Sam.
Sorry, I apologize. It's 2025. You think I'd know how to work this by now? It's a big statement from Colorado. If we remember when he got hired, they weren't necessarily in the best financial position, and I think that was one of the reasons why they hired him. I think even the administration kind of said it, that he would bring some buzz and potentially some revenue to the program, and so to give him a $10 million a year deal is a big commitment from the program. But I also think it speaks volumes to Deion's commitment to the program. I think if you had asked anybody, certainly me and maybe some of us here, whether Deion would still be in Colorado when his son and Travis Hunter and some of these both of his sons, and Travis Hunter would move on, I think there was a lot of skepticism, especially when you saw how he turned the roster over and how the high school recruiting was going early on. It seemed to be that they were putting all the eggs in the basket to compete and maximize the time while Shedeur and Shiloh and Travis Hunter were there. And then after that, it was all bets were off. But when you see the strides they made as a program this year on the field, contending in the Big 12, and then the Dallas Cowboys job comes open, he doesn't end up really becoming a real factor for it. I think he even said that he doesn't really have any interest in coaching the NFL. That's a big win for Colorado, because I do think the program is trending in the right direction. When you consider their past for a decade plus before he got there, their program's in a much healthier shape. So getting him locked up was huge, and him committing to them long term is also big time.
Well, also you can credit Jerry Jones for just mentioning the fact that he and Deion talked and loved Deion for, I'm sure, getting Colorado maybe off the sidelines a little bit more, I would think, and moving towards this. That was never going to be anything. But from Colorado's perspective, anything that comes that way about Deion, they have to treat as, well, this could be real.
100%. Yeah, it's one of those things is if you've got a guy you believe in and you have put your program in a really good place, you want to hang on to that. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes we see schools give extensions prematurely. We've seen plenty of them over the years that end up leading to these big old buyouts. But momentum is so precious, especially at this time in college athletics, when we're talking about the chasm between the conferences and revenue sharing coming. Stability right now is more important than it's ever been. And if you've got it, you got to do everything you can to hang on to it.
How much do you think Brett Yormark and the league are celebrating this news as much as anybody? Because, man, he's the ratings grabber, right, Sam? And, I mean, with a program with a lot of good to really good programs, there's not a lot of necessarily eye-catchers that you stop the television, but Deion's definitely one of those guys in college football.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no real marquee program in the way that there is in the SEC or Big Ten and even the ACC that has some brand names. There isn't one of those in the Big 12 that you can really hang your hat on year to year, because the conference fluctuates so much on the leaderboard and the standings. And Utah was expected to be really good, and then they ended up not being so good. And Arizona State was bad the year before and then ended up winning the conference. I mean, things fluctuate so much that it's hard. You don't really have a true tent pole. And so Colorado has turned into that ratings team for them. I don't know that they'll ever be a power in the Big 12, but they can certainly be a good team, a competitive team. And as long as Deion is there, people are going to tune in because he stays interesting. He keeps talking. He always says things that have people interested one way or another, whether you love him or you hate him. Chances are you're going to watch him.
Sam, the Big 12 has a ton of quarterbacks coming back. Some of them highly thought of. Some of them were transfers. Obviously, you have Leavitt, Arizona State, and others around the league. Who is Devin Dampier? We had a note about Utah, about what he's doing in Salt Lake City with Coach Whittingham and his program. Who, in your opinion, is the big transfer in the Big 12 that comes to mind that might have the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think it's Dampier. When you think about what that program missed last year with Cam Rising hurt, and then, they had to play multiple quarterbacks and had a lot of growing pains there. I thought Dampier was a fantastic player at New Mexico. The production is there. Certainly the size is not, it's not prototype, but his ability and his production is just unmatched. It's hard to really shake a stick at that. And I talked to some guys who scouted him and evaluated him when he hit the portal. And I think that the message was, hey, if he was a few inches taller, I think you'd have SEC and Big Ten teams maybe knocking on his door. I think the size was probably the biggest thing to get over, but the guy can play. And if he can get their offense back on track, that's a huge impact for Utah, because I think we know in the Whittingham era that defense is going to be really good. And even last year, even though they were a bad team, they weren't necessarily giving up 50 points a game. They were still a solid defensive team. If you can get an offensive spark, I think Dampier's that guy. He's a tremendous talent, and I think he'll be a really big boon for them.
Sam, who do you think in the Big 12 goes into spring practice with the most questions to answer?
Probably Colorado, actually, the team that we just talked about, because of how much they lost. Let's be honest, it's hard. It's hard to lose a starting quarterback, but they're not just losing a starting quarterback. They're losing a Heisman Trophy winner. They're losing so much production at receiver. They're losing so many key guys. And the quarterback situation there is fascinating with Caden Salter. I assume he will be the starter. I know Deion has said that it's going to be open. We're going to let him compete. And Juju Lewis is a fantastic recruit and was highly touted and heavily recruited by multiple programs across the country. I anticipate he's going to be the guy long term, but I would be shocked if anybody other than Caden Salter was taking that first snap in week one for them. And I think he's a really good bridge option for them. I really like him as a player. Again, slight of frame, not the biggest guy, but I think will do well in that offense. And so I am curious to see them, because they have a lot of other questions to answer on that front. But they're one of them. I think Oklahoma State's one of them too, because they had such a rough year last year. They brought in a lot of guys, and they had so much back last year from a production standpoint. So that roster has been in such flux. So I think they've got a lot of questions to answer as well. So those are the two teams for me as Oklahoma State and Colorado.
So Stanford, going across the country a bit, have an interesting situation ongoing now where they don't have an AD in place. They just fired their football coach thanks to GM Andrew Luck, who just came in the last few months, which is all just very weird. Max asked me yesterday, he's like, do you feel old talking about GM Andrew Luck? And I was like, yeah, I absolutely feel ancient. But any feel, Sam, or any thoughts on Stanford and that opening and just maybe a direction they can go and just sort of where they find themselves right now as a program?
Yeah, it's tough. The AD thing, I think, is less of a urgency at this point because you've got Luck, and Luck is the guy calling the shots. He reports really to I think nobody except the president at this point. So that's the guy running the program over there. The timing really is hard. Anytime you have a coach firing outside the traditional cycle, it becomes really difficult because it really limits your options. They don't have a lot of places to go. There's not a lot of coaches who are wanting to leave in spring. That said, some of the names you heard thrown around, the guys with Service Academy ties, Nia Montalolo, who of course is San Jose State, Jeff Monken at Army, I think they'd be good options for them. I also do think there's a benefit to just, stick with an interim head coach for this year and then see what the cycle looks like at the end of the year. I think there's a benefit to that. Stanford's going to have to prove that they are all in from a investment standpoint in their program as we enter the revenue sharing era, because we know they really haven't been heavily involved in this new era with the portal and NIL. They do not take a lot of transfers. Part of that's an academic issue because it's such hard to get people in there. But it's also, I think, the NIL money hasn't been there. We have heard that ever since Luck got there as a GM that donations have been up, and so that's a positive. But I think for a coach to succeed there, he's going to have to know that they're going to have the resources to pay and get players, because that's the number one name of the game is acquiring players. You need money to do that. I think they've said they're going to intend to fully fund at the maximum revenue share cap. But again, I think for every school that says that, it remains to be seen. And Stanford's one of those where if you're a coach that wants to evaluate that job, you want to know you're going to have every tool at your disposal to do your job well.
Sam, what do you expect out of the portal this spring? Because it seems like the money leaves in December, right? Like this is where they're enthusiastic, and the portal doesn't seem to time where coaches would necessarily get desperate or be in a position to do that. Do you think it's more like backfilling the roster out of the portal? Like, hey, we need a free safety, a couple linebackers, and a fourth wide receiver, right?
Yeah, for your Power 4 programs, your top programs that are spending the most, that's what the spring will be. It'll be getting some depth players in there at certain positions. Certainly, you're going to have some surprises. There always is. But I don't get the sense that this window coming up is going to be super eventful because of the money that's out there. Everybody is bringing their money up because revenue, assuming that the House settlement is approved on April 7th and we're moving forward with revenue sharing. If all these power conference programs are going to be able to spend $14, $15, $16 million on their football roster, then that's a lot of money. And in some cases, a lot more than some of these programs have had. Obviously, the Ohio States, the Texases have been funding their programs at the highest level, but your middle of the pack, your middle tier Power 4 programs maybe haven't necessarily been funding it that way. And I think that's why you didn't see as many big names in the winter window come out, is because so many of these programs, I think, have started to understand why spend the money to go get somebody we don't know about. We have to vet. We have to make sure he fits. If we have somebody who's really good on our roster, let's spend the money to retain that guy. And I think you're seeing a lot. You saw a lot of that in the winter window. And I think you're going to see more of that in the spring window. We're going to be trying to keep the guys that we need. And then the guys who are not going to play, those are the ones you're going to see hitting the portal. Or if, of course, there's a G5 player or an FCS player who maybe didn't end up transferring in the winter window that is intriguing to some people. Remember, these scouting staffs, they're looking at these rosters all year round. So if there's somebody, or maybe there's a freshman who ended up somewhere who looks like he's going off at a G5 school, you're going to see some of that type of poaching going on. But I think for the most part, you're not going to see a lot of headline-grabbing names hitting the portal in the spring window.
Back in February, at the end of February, you wrote the article, Transfer Portal Confidential, who was the best quarterback, what's the going rate for this and that. Do you think that rate will level off, or do you feel like it will continue to rise?
For quarterbacks, I think the market that we see right now is pretty much what it's going to be for now. Certainly, there's always going to be exceptions. If you really want a guy, are you going to be willing to spend $3-4 million like we heard thrown around for Darian Mensah or Carson Beck? Sure, I think that's a possibility. But I think the $1 million threshold for a quarterback is it seems pretty well established. Everybody we talk to pretty much established that as the baseline. I don't think that market's going to fluctuate as much. Where I think you will see fluctuation is at the other positions, because so many of them, when we talked and polled a lot of these guys, the ranges were all over the place, depending on who you asked. And so as we get into revenue sharing, and once people have a solid number, they know what they're funding, and they understand what the impact of these players are, and they're figuring out how to slot this percentage to the quarterback, this percentage to our edge rushers, this percentage to our secondary. That's going to take some time for everybody to figure out. So I think this first year of this in revenue sharing is going to be fascinating to see what kind of impact does that have next year, and how do teams evaluate and reassess how much they spend on a position not just for your starter, but for your entire position group. I think you're going to see a lot of teams try to mimic what NFL teams do and prioritize quarterbacks, offensive tackles, defensive linemen, corners, and so on. And then some of the other positions. I think the one position that's different that I find in college is running back. I feel like running backs are probably not as valued financially in the NFL. I still think they do carry a lot of value in college, and we still are seeing programs that are willing to pony up for some of those. But I'll be curious to see how that fluctuates over the time as rev share starts to get implemented.
Is there somebody that, for at least right now, that might be mid-level or lower in the Big 12 like we had last year, and it seems like we had every year, that might be a team that you think can be a surprise?
Ooh, that's a great question. Let's look through the list here.
Well, I brought up Dampier, and Paul's high on him. You're high on him, and obviously so is Utah. And they're we don't know where they're going to be picked because who knows. But a Cincinnati, a UCF, Houston, I don't know.
I think Houston's interesting. Houston's really interesting to me. Their schedule is tough, but I really am a fan of Connor Wegman. I'm not out on him yet. I know he had a rough go at A&M. I really like what they did in the portal on the offensive line. They got 5 guys who had starting experience at power conference programs. They really need to shore that up because they're, like I was talking about with Utah earlier, the defense at Houston was really, really good. Mm-hmm. Now their defensive coordinator is gone to Texas Tech now, but if they can still play defense at a high level, their offense was the worst in the country last year. So if you bring in a whole new offensive line and a quarterback who's a former 5-star who's got real talent. I don't think anybody's questioning Connor Wegman's talent. The talent was not the issue at A&M. There were a lot of other things going on there. But if he settles in and gets it going, and that offense even goes from 134th to 80th, that's probably a few more wins on the schedule for Houston because they were in a lot of these games last year. Even against Oklahoma in second game of the year, if they were able to get one touchdown, they would have won that game. So they're a team that I'm absolutely intrigued by in that group. And they also have the new coordinators that they have to work in. I like that Willie Fritz went to a guy that he knows and trusts in Slade Nagel. I think what Nagel did at Tulane offensively when Michael Pratt was there, I think I can see Connor Wegman sliding into that and doing really, really well because there's nothing that Pratt does that I don't think what Connor Wegman could do. I think he fits like a glove in that offense.
Sam, is your bracket still clean all the way into now what 12 teams are left in the tournament?
I think all 4 of my final 4 teams are still in. Duke is still in. Houston is still in. I can't remember who I had in that other. I think I had Auburn in that region. And then
Alabama.
Texas Tech was the one that I was hanging on a thread last night. I have them in the Final Four. And Buddy, with about 11 minutes to go last night, even 4 minutes to go last night, it was looking rough. And so I was watching that. It was a fascinating finish. God, kudos to Grant McCaslin and that team. They fought their butts off to win that one. It was exciting to watch. So I think all 4 of my Final Four teams are still in it.
I think I have all mine in it too, which is rare for me. And, of course, it's been most of the better seeds have been winning throughout. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Sam Kahn with us, theathletic.com. He just mentioned Tech. We've mentioned Tech. We've talked about Tech. Chris Lovell was there in the moment in San Francisco. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Tonight at the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in the Brazos River, an unforgettable evening with Chef Lee. He'll introduce each new dish that they have at the Baylor Club for dinner, sharing the inspiration behind them and offering insights into the flavors that will soon grace your table when you go eat at the Baylor Club. Intimate event is perfect way to get the first taste of what is to come, along with what they always have that is fantastic. Limited seats, so be careful. Get there early, 6:30 when it starts. Reserve your seat if you haven't already. It's not too late. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, Army. Warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports, there are 4 more games. Garrett, do you have the graphic of tonight's games? We'll have Chris Level join us here momentarily, giving us the time during an incredibly busy afternoon. You have Ole Miss and Michigan State, the first one, Kentucky and Tennessee, and the second games in those two regions are Michigan, Auburn, and then Purdue against Houston will try to become the second Big 12 team into the Elite Eight. We're now joined by Chris Level, Texas Tech radio broadcaster, analyst. It was there in San Francisco. He and Jeff Haxton had quite the night, as did a lot of Red Raider fans, in what was a memorable night in San Francisco. Chris, so give us your timeline. Game is over. We're going to get to that moment, but game ends, the adrenaline. What time did you go to bed, and how much sleep did you get?
Yeah, I mean, it's the time change has got me all screwed up anyway. I don't know how these West Coast people do it. It's not my cup of tea, but yeah, we heck, I don't know, Smokey. When we got back to the hotel, and this hotel was a circus. There was just people out on the, because when you get into the tournament, there's a police escort with the team bus, and so we got an escort back to the hotel, and you get to the hotel, and it's like it's just chaos. Everybody's enjoying themselves and all that, and you're just like, man, I just want to get up to my room. But I fought my way through the crowd, and I guess I shut it down here about midnight, 12:30 local time, but which would have been about 2:30 you guys. But one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to go back and rewatch the last 15 minutes of regulation and overtime and all that, just to make sure that I didn't miss anything, because there's just so much that happened in that game that I couldn't believe it. We're in the business of radio, and your job is to tell the story and talk and all that, and there were times last night where I was a bit speechless. I just couldn't believe what I was witnessing in front of me, because you were dead to rights, and then you weren't. And it was just one of those games that it didn't matter who you were rooting for, you're going to remember it for a long time. And like, second biggest Sweet 16 comeback in the history of the tournament and all those things. But it was just an honor, and it was very special to be there, to witness it and to be a part of it. And survive in advance. Whoever coined that phrase, that was applicable last night for sure.
Chris, you've been with this team every step of the way this year. You knew that they had it in them to close this gap, but it is. But was there a point where you thought, like, well, good run, guys? Like, was it that 11-minute mark for you, or did you always think, like, you know what, this just needs one little thing?
Paul, I think when you're down 16 with 10 minutes and change to go, I think it felt pretty bleak. And the problem is what you're saying is like, okay, you could have, a few things happened and you feel better about it. But like, the problem is you're doing this shorthanded. And like, I'm like, okay, who can get hot? Who can save you? Who can provide the juice? And you're riding Toppin, you're riding Deion Williams, and they were just not. They were having semi-average nights to that point, and Deion Williams just hadn't shot it well. Elijah Hawkins, your point guard, who has been so good, just was having one of his worst games, and yet you have a kid named Christian Anderson just come out of. He didn't come out of nowhere, but he's done this all year long. But he hadn't had the best NCAA tournament, and then he just kind of starts to figure it out. And then Deion hits a few shots. And you just kind of – but the point of the whole deal is that Arkansas played a very comfortable game. They controlled that entire game up until, 6 to 7, 8 minutes left. And you could never – look, I've seen Arkansas plenty this year, and they're crazy talented. I mean, this was a top 10 preseason team, folks. I mean, they pay their coach makes $8 million a year. They're paying their roster. Rumors are about $7 to $10 million a year. John Tyson, the Tyson Chicken, he's one of John Calipari's best friends. I mean, so they're well funded. The talent has not been their problem. And I thought, okay, you just run into a team that's finally got it all figured out. But what was crazy is they have moments where they look very inexperienced and young and not on the same page. But you could never make them feel any pressure to see if they would crack, if they would screw anything up. And then finally, when you got to that point, lo and behold, they started to miss, and you could feel like you're starting to put some pressure on them. So that was the fact that you just gotten it to that point. I'm like, okay, well, maybe, but when Knox hits the three in the corner to go up 6 with, I guess it was about a minute left, I thought, okay, you've worked really hard. And it may not be your day, and you tried, and maybe they're just not going to be denied. And then yet you bury 2 threes in a row to tie the game, and we go to overtime, and we know how it ended. But just a wild scene here last night.
I listened to calls the last, I guess, minute or two. With you and Jeff, it was posted by somebody who's a Texas Tech fan. Might have even been the radio station. I don't know. And it was. As a broadcaster, I was curious. Sometimes you can lose it. Sometimes it's just the enthusiasm. I mean, you love Tech. You've covered them for a long, long time. How many times? I may be giving something away here. How many times when they were making the comeback did you ever like pop Jeff on the thigh or something like that, or elbow or whatever, as they were making this run? Because I've done that. Paul, I've done that. How much do you get into it in a way like that as you're watching this transfold in front of you?
Well, and that's why I think that's what makes a good broadcaster, and is that you've got to have some real emotion into it. If you're just a robot, then what are you doing this for? I'll be honest with you. Like I've done that before. Last night wasn't necessarily me popping him on the leg type of night because I was in shock. I literally just couldn't believe you were doing this, because none of it was easy, and it was just kind of this slow death by 1,000 paper cuts for Arkansas anyway, that you were able to kind of slowly kind of come back. And then the moment that when Deion Williams hit that 3 to tie it, to send it to overtime, essentially. Now, you still had to survive Arkansas getting one last crack at it to try to win it in regulation. But when he hit that 3 to tie it, I mean, I was like, okay, this is – we're witnessing something really special here. And I had the guy next to me, who I didn't even know, he's filming it. And I said, dude, can you send that to me? Because I'm trying to do the radio thing and he sent it to me. But yeah, I mean, you can't help but feel Grant's emotion and the emotion of these kids. And you're right. And you're doing all this shorthanded and it sucks. I hate that part that you don't have all your players available to you. And that's what's just frustrating, because it's like, you know, some of these kids, they just need a little help. If you just had a little bit more help and another guy, and it happens to be one of your best guys, and Chance McMillan, you'd really love to see what you're capable of. But the fact that they've gotten to the Elite Eight without one of their best players is just unbelievable to me. And Grant McCaslin has just done a phenomenal job with these kids, but he just refuses not to believe. I mean, that's the thing. And they all kind of buy in and they just keep swinging away, and it's worked out so far. But boy, their toughest test is yet to come. I mean, this Florida team is loaded, and you could play really good and still lose.
So let's talk about the Florida Gators and Todd Golden's team. They have probably the most highly functioning offense in the country when it comes to all the different things they do. Not to knock Alabama and their 7,000 threes that they made last night, but Florida and the way that they do everything and how they get everybody involved. Plus, they have a guy who's modeled his game after Steph Curry very clearly in Walter Clayton Jr. and is doing a pretty good impression of it right now. And he didn't even have a good game last night by his standards. He was kind of ho-hum, and they still won. How does Tech match up with this team, especially last night? They only played 7 guys. Florida's going to play more than that, and they have so much length and speed.
Yeah, I mean, pick anything. I mean, they out rebound everybody. I mean, it's one of the top teams in the country. This is what you sign up for when you get to this point in the tournament. That's the way it's supposed to work typically. And yeah, they average about 85 a game. You actually average more threes a game than they do, but they out rebound their team, their opponents by about 8 a game. I mean, they can score from all 5 spots. But here's why I would say that you can match up. This is not the best defensive team now. I mean, you can, like last night I watched them, they turned it over 13 times in the first half against Maryland. Now, Maryland, they're inexperienced and they just weren't quite good enough to take advantage of some of that. But you can score on these guys, and I think Tech is, the numbers love their offense too. I mean, you're averaging over 80 a game, and I just think you're going to have to shoot it well. Okay, bottom line, you're going to have to. You can't have a night like you did last night. You also can't go through a scoring drought, because if you get down 16 against these guys, forget it. I just don't see that you can put enough defense together to get back in it. But I mean, it's going to take beating, playing your best game and beating one of the top teams in the country, which I would say, I don't know if you can do that, but I've seen this team do it. I mean, to go win in Houston, I mean, because you may be about to see the best offense in the country. You've seen the best defense in the country, without a doubt. I don't want to hear any St. John's talk or, Drake. I think, in a lot of metrics, had one of the best defenses in the country. Houston plays the best defense in the country. Period. End of story. And you beat those guys once. You had 6 players on a Monday night in Lubbock, Texas, and it goes down to less than a minute to go before Milos Uzan, gets a second chance opportunity and makes a 3 to put you away that night. So I just think you'll be a tough out. I don't know what it looks like. I just know that you better have a low turnover game and you better shoot it well. And if you do that, you can put a scare into these guys, but it's going to require a really, really good effort. And I just don't know if Texas Tech can continue to shoot it as poorly, because it's crazy. You made it to the Elite Eight, and you've strung together about 3 very average to below average shooting nights for you. And it's nuts that you're this far, but that's just been the reality of it. You haven't shot it well in this tournament, and yet you continue to find ways to win.
Chris, off the hardwood, spring football rolling on along. Obviously, a big offseason for Texas Tech. A lot of excitement about the future. I feel like spring football's just weird across the board this year, and the conversation about it is obviously about doing scrimmages with other teams and all of that. So it's been kind of weird to follow a lot of teams, but how would you, summarize Texas Tech and just sort of what spring ball's been like through a couple of weeks and just, the mood, the atmosphere, and I guess the big talking points?
Yeah, they've got their first scrimmage tomorrow, and you're right. I think there's a lot of chat. I mean, Joey's like, "Hey, does A&M want to scrimmage? How about does Texas want to scrimmage? Do we do something with Oklahoma?" He tried to do the whole deal with Deion and Colorado. So I don't know where all this is going. If any of that really comes to pass, in the immediate or next year or whatever. But it's been fun, and I'm here for it. If they all want to scrimmage like these NFL teams do, the chatter though in Lubbock is going to continue to be about all the new additions that they've had and the added competition. I think as a broadcaster, we keep being told by Joey, he's like, "Hey man, you're going to need some more places on your spotting board. We just have a lot more proven depth than we've ever had before." And that's fun for a coach because it doesn't, speaking of this injury stuff, we're talking about the basketball team, you feel like you're covered in a lot of places if somebody goes down here or there. And it's just never been like that, but you can acquire that, which they did. And so that's what I'm, when I get back and this basketball thing ends, whenever it does, I can't wait to just see what the depth looks like along the lines of scrimmage and the speed that they've added at running back and at receiver and at tight end and whatnot. But that's kind of the storyline now. And all the while you don't have your quarterback healthy and practicing just yet. And Baron Morton, he's going to miss the spring. So that's kind of what the talking points to answer your question have been to this point. But man, if they want to tee it up at the Star in Frisco against Deion's team, I'll be there for it. I got no problem with that. I'd love it.
Yeah, you never know, and obviously a lot of momentum. And of course, we mentioned the Deion contract earlier today to start off our show. Joey, with his high school background, and Chris, thank you, man. I know it's been like a blur, and you probably couldn't wait to you'll sleep really well tonight, whenever that might be. But with his high school background, the spring drills, it always seemed like that would be part of his wheelhouse. But that you want to make sure they would do crossover. You think they would want to do that in the spring? Or do you ever think we might get to that point if it ever gets approved that they could do it in the fall too, in August?
Yeah, I think what's going to end up happening is I really think that there's not going to be spring football anymore, and there's going to be like what they would term like OTA type stuff, what the pros do like in the summertime. And I think you may start to see, and I'm not going to be surprised if you start to see joint practices. Those NFL teams do this all the time, like for a couple of days. The Niners and the Chargers are going to get together, or the Raiders and the Cowboys, and you just kind of have controlled stuff, and there's fights that break out, and you kind of, it's always somebody that's not on your schedule for the regular season. But I absolutely think that's the way this thing is headed, and again, they'll figure out a way to monetize it, and like sell tickets to it or whatever. I think that's where we're absolutely headed. I just think traditional spring football will eventually go away.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I know it's been a barrage, battering ram, whatever, a blur, like I said, but great call. I did get to listen to it and enjoy the day. Watch some basketball tonight. Get a good meal and have fun. Enjoy it. Thanks for your time. Get Tech in the Big 12 in at least one more team in the Final Four. Hopefully Houston gets there again tonight.
All right, you got it, boys. I appreciate it. Keep hope
Chris
alive.
Lovell, Red Raider Sports, Texas Tech. He's a sideline analyst in football, color analyst in basketball, and an excitement of what they did last night in San Francisco.
Yeah, and rightfully so. That was a massive win for them, and to be in the Elite Eight's a really cool accomplishment. I know they were, playing for a national title a handful of years ago and fell just short, but they're right in the mix, although, as everybody is saying, it's like, all right, well, good luck in the next round because of who you're playing, but shoot, man, rather have that problem than the problem of being at home and season over with, like Arkansas today. I think they'd much rather be getting ready for, a potential buzzsaw and being the underdog in the next round versus being at home like they are. So, yeah, it's a good problem to have of your Texas Tech. And, I just threw the one football question there. It is weird. Like, spring football feels like it does not matter at all right now.
Yeah, it's almost is it even there? You get a little bit of
you started talking about, like, getting to spring ball where it's like, dude, they've been going for like 3 weeks already. Like, they've been underway. But I just don't know, outside of the subscription circles, when you're really, zoned in on your team, I don't know how much that really – even like nationally, I don't feel like there's a lot of spring ball talking points. The majority of the conversation's about the changes to spring ball that are eventually coming.
Yeah.
But, like, do you recall seeing a headline that's like anything related to, like, a quarterback competition
yeah.
or –
Well, we had the Dampier, but that was more just a quote from an article.
That's not a competition. That's a coronation.
That's a clear starter.
That's a stamp approval.
Yeah,
right?
So I don't know. I feel like there was more of that that's not even in existence right now, just sort of the coverage. And again, maybe it's it's just drilled down to like team sites nowadays, but I just feel like social media wise, and maybe I've just muted so many people that I don't see it anymore. Maybe that's the problem, honestly, but it does feel like there is a void of excitement that is typically pushed to the side because of what's going on in basketball right now, obviously. But I don't know. It does feel different. It just feels different across the board, that there's not sort of that buzz of spring ball. And I think it's because everybody just sort of knows what the deal is now, is that this is the end of an era and it's different now, like everything else is.
Yeah. By the way, that segment, especially with Chris Level and Kim Coulter, wanted to remind me, is brought to you by North Star Funding Partners. Anything Texas Tech, when we have it and when we can remember it, and appreciate Chris Level for joining us. Paul, you were going to add something else?
Yeah, and look, I try to, like, I haven't muted, probably as many people as you have on Twitter, Craig, but I'm there. I've muted quite a bit, but. Yeah, I just haven't seen it, like, following, the college football writers that I do, which is a lot of college football writers. There are not a lot of, hey, here's how this is going in the spring. Now, a lot of media has restricted access now to the spring because of that precise thing. They don't want to, I don't want this guy to write this article about how great our quarterback competition is, that one of these guys is going to lose. There is a little bit of that to it, I think. And again, because it's not like, they're not going to have a spring game. They're not going to do this. It's going to be 15 mundane practices by old standards, and there's not as much to report on.
Yeah. For example, Tech's been going on. I think they actually had maybe a bubble in between when they started. I watch what's going on in Nebraska to just kind of keep up, but I haven't really followed much. Baylor started at the end of last week. I've seen a couple of audio clips, but that's it. You're right. It does seem like it's out there. You kind of feel it, but it's not like it's for some reason like overwhelmed. Maybe if the college football type spring drill special or whatever. And we haven't really done much with it other than a couple of interviews of programs that are a part of the Big 12.
I think, too, I just think there's a lot of people that don't want it year-round, like that maybe take a break during spring because they don't want it to be, an everyday following thing, that it's like, I've got baseball in the spring and then I've got football in the fall, and they don't necessarily want football 365, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think there's probably some of that, and people who are just like, I'm focused on basketball until my team's out of it. Like, so I think just different strokes for different folks, but certainly there's a lack of importance that's been tattooed on it now versus maybe even a couple of years ago when it was still like, oh, hell yeah, football's back, for even if it's not really football, it's still just some version of it. I think there's an element of that, but it's not as big of a deal because, well, let's face it. What are you getting excited about? You getting excited about a bunch of guys that if they do well might leave in a couple of weeks? That's the thing that's kind of attached to spring ball now, is just trying to keep your team under the cover of darkness so nobody comes and plucks players away from you. So it's now sort of shrouded in secrecy as a result of all of the other rule changes, and I guess that probably plays into it as well, is you're not trying to make it a big public thing as much as you used to.
Well, yeah, if they've ever get the everything kind of like under wraps in a way, maybe you can become 365 days a week when it comes to college football. But you're right, that's a great. So you get excited about a wide receiver, and next year he's at Auburn or BYU or wherever. That's a great point. I thought we were getting closer to that, but maybe that has calmed down just a little bit. Garrett, can we still take what is a super chat and put it on the screen? Or have we ever been able to do that?
I don't think we've ever.
Yeah, I don't think we've been able to do that.
Just wanted to read it. Kim Coulter with a super chat. David Smoak, the knower of all.
Oh, no wonder you wanted to read that.
Well, the reason I did is because of late last night when he gave up on Texas Tech.
I mean, I wouldn't say the knower of all. I would say that you're maybe more of a true believer.
I just said there's a long way to go in this game. I did not think they were going to come back and win that game. I just thought that they would come back and make it close. But Kim, thank you for also admitting that you'd given up on your alma mater.
But hey, that's an easy thing to do,
No,
right? I mean,
my
it's
God.
really easy to do that.
There was 1.9%
Especially easy
chance.
to do when you want to go to bed.
Yeah, it was so late into the night. Yeah. Hey, by the way, remember yesterday we were bringing up the transfer portal, basketball, or football. Did coaches ever have a say in any of this? When they meet and they decide all this, is there somebody in the room that represents, for example, the American Football Coaches Association or the United States Basketball Coaches Association? Is there anybody there that might say, hey, guys, hold on a minute, about the transfer portal starting the week of the Sweet 16? Bruce Pearl, whose Auburn Tigers are playing tonight, who's in the Sweet 16, is somebody that does have a little bit of say with the U.S. Basketball Association or Coaches Association. Here's a quick little note from him about the transfer portal and the timeline.
I was also on the NABC committee for trying to figure out when the best time to open the portal. I'm glad that the portal has gone from 45 days to 30 days because I think 30 days is enough time for those guys to decide whether they want to stay or when they want to go. And I think the reason for the timing of doing it just after the Sweet 16 is almost all the teams in the country except 16 teams, the season's over. And so if you're a student athlete and you're at another Division I institution and your season was over at the beginning of March, you're supposed to have to wait 3 or 4 weeks until the Final Four is over before you can move on with the rest of your life. So I think the National Association of Basketball Coaches kind of looked at it and said, hey, what might be best for all the student athletes when we decided to kind of do it at this window? Yeah, it's a little inconvenient for 16 teams, but these other student athletes need to be able to figure out what's going on for the rest of their lives.
So there's a guy that's been ranked number one for most of the year, not now, but has been, and a team that could win it all. And he gave that. I happened to see that on my timeline. I was like, okay, let's peel that off. Garrett, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, like part of it is, okay, you're in that, like, I get his thing, like the sarcastic way to be it, like, oh, you poor little Sweet 16 teams. Like, you know, like I'm sure the guys, like, if you're Darian DeVries and you're at Indiana, you got snubbed from the tournament, the new team's not in the tournament, and they're all going to probably leave, and that maybe because you told them to.
Did I say this on the air that Indiana, there's a note that everybody in their roster's gone?
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm sure DeVries probably like Deion did. Hey, you guys.
Look, Calipari had nobody at Arkansas last year, right? They had no roster, and he built it up to a Sweet 16 team. So it's already proven in 1 year that it can work. But the bottom line is that, like, yeah, I'm sure that, like, okay, you're talking about, you know, what is it, 68 teams, and then a week after that it's down to 16. So really it's 16 teams that have this problem, and the other 338 or whatever it is don't. They're all going, boo bleeping who, we don't care, we've got to build a team up from zero in a lot of cases. Like we've got 12 scholarships to fill and NIL to do. So yeah, we need an extra week. You guys will be fine. Sorry about your luck, Duke.
Yeah, and then there's 4 teams after this weekend. So then you have 347 that are trying to reestablish or fill or even completely overhaul their roster. We have coming up at 5 o'clock, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. We will look at the Pitt football schedule here in a moment. Also today, Paul Catalina at his top 5. Now we're going to come back, we think, with the Pitt football schedule. Former Houston guard Reed Gettis, who was a part of Phi Slamma Jamma, I reached out to him a couple of days ago. He texted me this morning and said, I really won't know if I'm available until around 4:30. So I'm waiting on whether or not he's available or not, so we'll see what happens with that. But when we come back, we will discuss the Pitt 2025 football schedule, and this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people you can count on for your automotive needs, and all of those needs, whether it's buying a vehicle or just getting your car worked on, can be had over there for great prices and along with great customer service at Richard Carr. And right now they are celebrating, as they typically are always celebrating something, but right now celebrating serving Central Texas for 26 years with their anniversary sales savings event. And right now, if you're looking for some excitement in your drive, you can check out the Cadillac Lyric. It is a EV, but not an everyday plain Jane electric vehicle. You can see that for yourself in person. Come by the dealership today and test drive a Cadillac Lyric and experience the difference between that EV and other EVs or other types of vehicles. Just one of the options they have over there. They also have for GMC Sierra interested folks, a 2024 Sierra 1500 SLE. Qualified buyers can save $11,750 with an eligible trade-in. So just a couple of the many options they have over for you right now on the lot. They're locally owned, they're locally run, and they're celebrating 26 years of business in Waco. So do business in town with a dealership that gives back to Baylor and the Waco community. Deal with people you can count on. Take advantage of their great deals during the anniversary savings event going on right now at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Here we go, 365 Sports, as we're rolling through the ACC. Every day, whenever we can, a football schedule for the upcoming season, just to look at it, bits and pieces of it, nuances. Craig Smoak, it's Pitt.
Yeah, the Pitt Panthers finished last year 7-6. Obviously started off really well, but then Eli Holstein got hurt, and their season basically tanked alongside that. Really rough stretch starting off with 7 wins, and then had 6 straight losses to close out the season, including a crazy game with Toledo there at the end. So Pitt looking to hopefully keep their quarterback healthy. But, that was a wild I was trying to think of the bowl game, the Game Above Sports Bowl. Zero chance y'all watched Pitt and Toledo's bowl game last year, right?
I didn't.
If I did, it wasn't long.
6 overtimes?
Yeah. No, I wasn't I didn't spend a lot of time watching.
Yeah, 6 overtimes. They fell the day after Christmas last year, and so big win for Toledo. I vaguely remember that, and I feel like I should really remember that because 6 overtimes, but then again, the timing of it, I think we were all still basking in the glow of Christmas Day perhaps, but I'm sure plenty of you out there watched it. That's how the season ended for them. Eli Holstein's back, and he is the face of the program right now, so how do they bounce back from that? And I don't know that I've ever seen that. I'm sure there was a note or two about whether that's ever happened before, but to start the season 7-0 and to finish 7-6 is just pretty crazy. I mean, that's just wild to be there at some point last year and go, we're 7-0. Mm-hmm. Like we're in the first place in the ACC. We're undefeated. We're in the top 25, and then you proceed to lose 6 games to close out the season. Just crazy stuff. So how does Pitt manage in 2025? Well, they got a pretty interesting schedule coming up. So here is where we go with the Pitt schedule. I just had it in front of me.
You want mine?
No, I got it. I needed to stop freezing for a second. All right, here we go. So they will open play on Saturday, August the 30th against Duquesne. That is the opening game there for Pitt, and that's called the City Game. First time, and they're both based there in Pittsburgh, so therefore the City Game. But the first time they will have met in football since 1939. So a very interesting footnote to that matchup as they will open up with the City Game against crosstown rival Duquesne. So, yeah, big time, long time, game in the waiting to go from pre-World War II to now playing in 2025. So that's how things will open up for Pitt in Week 1. That'll be followed by Saturday, September the 6th, Central Michigan. And then on Saturday, September the 13th, it's a trip to Morgantown to face Rich Rod and company in another rivalry game, as that should be pretty hot and spicy, I would think, especially early on in the season. West Virginia with Rich Rod back there, I think they'll really further embrace the importance of beating Pitt. So you'll have that right there in Week 3 as well. And then you get your first break. So there's your non-con is Duquesne at home in a long time coming rivalry matchup, Central Michigan at home, and then you travel to the hills of West Virginia to take on the Mountaineers in a little Big 12 ACC action on Saturday, September the 13th. So there is your first 3 weeks, and they will get a bye following those first 3 games. Yeah,
I think that last one, especially Rich Rodriguez, has been very vocal about how much he values that Pitt rivalry and how excited he is to get back in it. I'm excited to see that one. I
think there's a spice to it with Rich Rod there now that they're going to have more of an edge to them than the Neil Brown. Yeah,
he was asked about it, and he was I saw him on a podcast where he was talking about that rivalry and how when he was there before, those games kind of turned seasons for them in one regard or another, and so that's going to be a good jumping off point for both those programs, especially since that's the and I've got to
backyard brawl.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's the first real big game for both of them on the season. They both have 2 games that they should win right off the bat, and that's the one that's going to really have a lot of weight. So they both have some runway to get there, and then they have this big night. And right now Pitt appears to be maybe a little bit ahead because they've got a returning coaching staff and a returning starting quarterback and all that. Not that Nico's not returning, but he wasn't the full-time starter. Yeah, he's not Eli Holstein. So that's all that's going in there. West Virginia's doing a bunch of new stuff. Pitt will be able to do the same stuff, but it is in Morgantown, so that means a lot of the bets are off. And both teams could be 12-0, both teams to be 0-12, and that game's going to be a blood sport kind of game.
So there is the first 3 weeks of the schedule, and then you get your first bye week. Then they will start conference play on Saturday, September the 27th. You got Louisville. Got another home game the following week against Boston College. Then on Saturday, October the 11th, Florida State in Tallahassee. Following week, another road game. So you have back-to-back home games coming off the bye week to start our conference play with Louisville and BC, and then back-to-back road games, Florida State in Tallahassee, and then Syracuse up in New York. And then you'll close out the month of October with NC State at home. So post-bye week, you're getting right into the heart of the ACC schedule, and you get Louisville and you get FSU, and we're talking about FSU like they still are FSU, like they need to prove something.
Well,
I mean, like
we're no idea who they are.
we have no idea, but like we're
idea.
talking about them the same way we're talking about all the good teams from last year, and they weren't that. So I mean, that could be a tough game. It might not be, but it's still a name, and as is some of the others on the schedule we'll get to. But yeah, Louisville, BC, FSU, Syracuse, NC State, and we'll take a break right there as they get into the month of November.
Yeah, I mean, this is a part of the schedule where Pitt can really kind of make hay with the sun shines. Louisville at home, that's good to get them there. That's going to be a really interesting game. I don't think Boston College will be quite as sneaking up on people as they were last year. I don't, they're a team I also don't know a lot about. At Syracuse is going to be tough. NC State, I think they should have that one. Obviously, Stanford's in a rough way right now, and Florida State is. God, who are they? I can tell you, I've watched some videos from practice, and it looks better in practice videos than it did the practice videos I watched last year. I don't know what that means.
Are you getting in huddle? You're getting in there. You're watching
they've released a lot of stuff. They're trying to get people excited. They're trying to get people excited. But. And they do full contact maybe a little bit more than most do at this point. So that's how that was a really good catch or whatever. But again, you're also playing against guys you practice against every single day. So we'll see. Here's who I know Florida State can beat right now. Florida State. That's who they can beat.
Yeah.
But so we know nothing about them. But I do think the middle part here, you could get through that with 1 or 2 losses. You're going to be in a really good spot to still
you
play
need
the
to be
title game.
You need to be because what he's about to say.
And I think they can. I think that's very reasonable for this team to get through that part of the schedule. Now this other part, Craig, that one's going to be the prove it.
Yeah, so I mean they'll be 2-0 in the early part of the non-con, but then that West Virginia game that'll send them a certain direction and then lead them into conference play. So I mean you're going to be 3-0, 2-1, and then these are manageable games. I mean I think you feel good about being at home against some of these teams. The Syracuse road trip might be like the most daunting thing, but at this point, one thing that I also notice is you've got 4 home games in your first 5 weeks. So that should prove beneficial. You would hope so if you're the Pitt Panthers. So, all right, they close out October, get into November, and they still haven't had their second bye. They're going to in a second. But first, on Saturday, November the 1st, they are going all the way across the country to take on the Stanford Cardinal and whoever their head coach is. We won't know that, and who knows when we will know that, but it won't be Troy Taylor. That we do know. So they do get the draw of, all right, who's going to travel all the way across the country to go play one of our West Coast teams. They got the one of the short sticks there, so they will go to Palo Alto, although beautiful part of the country. Definite road trip I think you'd want to book if you're a Pitt fan. Of the options you have, there's some pretty good ones, but I think that one would be certainly unique and a lot of fun. And a game you probably feel like you'll win, but at Stanford and then their second bye week. So the second bye week, and you get 3 games to close out the season. So what is that? That is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 6, 7? When's their first bye week? Did I mention that?
It's
okay. So they go 3.
The third week in September.
Yeah, they go 3 games and then their bye week, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, and then another bye week, and then 3 to close it out. So they got a 3-6-3 as we're noting that with all of these different schedules. And we've had some weird combinations. What was the one we had a couple days ago? It was a 1-9-2 or whatever the crazy what it was. But anyways. So they get the 3-6-3, and that final 3 is on paper. It's a little bit of a buzzsaw. Saturday, November 15th. I guess this would be their 4th non-con game, right? Notre Dame. and that is at home at Pitt. Then the following week, you go to Georgia Tech, so heading to Atlanta to take on the Yellow Jackets, who were pretty good last year, and that was with Haynes King basically having an arm that didn't work. And then you close it on out Saturday, November the 29th with the Miami Hurricanes at home. So 2 of the final 3 weeks, you get Notre Dame and Miami at home, the trip to Georgia Tech sandwiched there in the middle. If you're asking, like, hey, can you put together the hardest ACC 3-game stretch you can for us? I mean, you could swap Clemson in for maybe Georgia Tech or something, but Notre Dame at Georgia Tech and Miami is a pretty damn good 3-game stretch. I don't know if it's damn good if you're a Pitt fan, but it'll be entertaining, you would think. But that is a pretty tough stretch on paper to close things on out.
I wonder if you'd rather have it at the end where you know who you are, or in the middle where you don't, and maybe they do off the top. I don't know, but that is a really good close.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
And it's good for them that they have 2 of those 3 at home. For sure. Bobby Dodd, not an easy place to go into when the Yellow Jackets are popping. Miami coming there. That should be, if that should be, at least one of those teams should be in it for the conference title game, in my opinion. If Pitt's really better, if Eli Helstein's healthy, they show what they can do, and he is there in playing. So that's a really tough stretch at the end of the season. And Pitt is one of those teams that could be like one of the big surprises of the year. They could be this year's, I don't know how big of a surprise SMU was last year, but first year in a new conference kind of a thing. They could be a really big surprise and do a lot of great things, or this schedule could do it. So,
yeah. All right.
So they got the 3-6-3. There's the end of that. And I was going to make mention, as I always do with these segments, of just some of the teams they don't play. So you're looking at, you play Miami, you play Notre Dame, you play Georgia Tech, you play FSU, you play Louisville, you play Syracuse. So you're playing a lot of the good teams on paper, but you don't play Clemson. You don't play SMU. And then a couple of the others that you miss out on are UNC and Cal as well, so you don't have to worry about them, or Duke for that matter. So I just wanted to make mention of that, and I guess we got to go here. So
no, we're good. We're good. Go ahead.
Okay, so there's some of the teams that you don't play, and I guess that's it. There's the Pitt football schedule in 2025.
All right, who's next after Pitt? Who's next?
SMU.
SMU, the Ponies, the Mustangs will be next, and we'll have them on Monday. You want to take a break here real quick?
Yeah, let me see
if
I can make
We'll
this
come
call.
back. Reed Gettis, former University of Houston basketball guard. He was a part of that great run in 1983 and also during that time. His thoughts about the Cougars tonight as they're in the Elite Eight, and this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, the final days of March. This is fresh off a text that I received from Ted Teague, CEO and general manager. Some of the biggest savings of the year right now. Drive home the 2024 Jeep Wagoneer Carbide 4x4, 20-inch gloss black wheels, sunroof, and free maintenance for 2 years. All for $10,500 off MSRP. If you want all of it, check out the 2024 Jeep Grand Wagoneer 4x4 with 22-inch machine finished wheels, heated, cooled seats, 19-inch speaker stereo system, and also center console, 19 different speakers, center console safe, now $14,700 off MSRP. If those deals aren't for you, they have all sorts of great pre-owned. They have Ram trucks, and it's Ram truck months. But the Jeep Wagoneer Carbide and the Jeep Grand Wagoneer right now with fantastic specials, discounts, and more. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, David Gray, new car sales manager, and Ted Teague, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
From Memorial High School to the University of Houston, Reed Gettis joins us, former Houston guard, and of course tonight the Cougars trying to keep their dream alive and maybe be the second team from the Big 12 with Tech winning that dramatic game last night. Reed joins Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak. Reed, thank you very much for your time. It's been a while since you played, but this is your alma mater. This is who you love. How much do you get to watch them? And then secondly, do you get nervous at all when they're playing in a game like this?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Glad to join you guys. I get to see them a lot. I still call not all of their ESPN Plus games, but most of them. Which is a perfect amount of games for me, but also a great way to still feel involved and get to know the kids. And the answer to your question is I get really nervous. I've been texting my son. I just got done texting my son about how we defend Braden Smith on the ball screens. He and I are coming up with different strategies. Nobody's asked us outside of anyone not named Gettis, but he and I've come up with a pretty good strategy.
Have you told Kelvin Sampson of this yet?
No,
okay.
No. Here's the deal. That kid, if y'all have been watching Purdue, he may be the best point guard in the country. I mean, he is great. But I'm just telling you, we're not going to get beat by a point guard. Now, we might get beat by Cooper Flagg and their 7'2" center, but the way we defend and the way our perimeter kids defend, as great as Braden Smith is, that's not who's going to beat us.
How would you describe, if you were playing against a Kelvin Sampson defense, how would you describe that in maybe some other way? Rabid dogs, like a wasp nest? Well, how would you describe playing against them?
So my best point of reference is, and this is going way back, and none of you guys will remember, but anybody listening with gray hair will remember the Smother Brothers from Arkansas and how great they were. Darrell Walker and Alvin Robertson. And they just, I mean, you could be dribbling down the floor and think that you're still dribbling and suddenly look down and the ball's not there. It is unbelievable. And then my other comparison is that maybe the best defensive team I've ever seen And there's a big exception to my analogy here, but the Georgetown team that beat us in the NCAA championship, now they had Ewing on the back end of it, but I'm telling you, those guys, they made you uncomfortable. I mean, from the opening tip. I remember, I had David Wingate guarding me, and I thought, okay, I'll tire him out. Well, that's not going to work. And I thought, okay, I'm going to run him off a screen. Well, that didn't work. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to be physical with him. That didn't work. And eventually I got 2 fouls called because I just put my hands in the middle of his chest and just shoved him. They just make you uncomfortable, and that's what this U of H team does. I remember I called the BYU game, and they were coming in with Yegor Dimon, a 6'9", European kid, and everyone's telling me, oh, he's a first-round pick. And I'm like, he is going to get destroyed. And he got destroyed because you have to come in being prepared to be uncomfortable. And the problem is you can't prepare for that. You can't simulate it in practice. And we used to, when we'd get ready to play Arkansas, we would scrimmage against 6 guys. And that's what it feels like.
Wow.
That you're double teamed and you look out the double team and nobody's open and you skip a pass and they're closed out, not on the pass, but on the catch. And you just want to stop and go, wait a second, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 guys out here, but God, it feels like there's 6 or 7 guys.
What a brilliant thing to do is practice against 6, because that's what it feels like you're playing against.
It's exactly what it feels like. And you just have a roamer. What's amazing about U of H is that they'll hard double teams on the ball screens, and they'll double team posts. Purdue's big guy doesn't handle double teams very well, which I anticipate will be a big key tonight. But it's amazing because normally when you double team, the first pass, good defensive teams can take away the first pass. Great defensive teams can take away the second pass. U of H is the only team I've ever seen that can take away the first, the second passes and close out on the skip passes. And you're like, well, crap, how'd they do that? And our sophomore kid, JoJo Tugler, I said it early in the year, when we were still playing, I don't know, terrible teams that were just terrible. I said, he's the most energetic. He may be the best defensive player in the country. He's 6'7", 6'8". He's got a wingspan of 7'6", and he's like a bolt of electricity. I've never seen somebody more active on the floor. And half the time he doesn't know what he's doing, but he can make up for it. He's the key. So anyway, as you can tell, I'm really high on him. I pick him every year to be in the Final Four, and this is the first time that I picked with my head, with my heart and my head.
Yep.
So tonight should be fun.
We've watched him, obviously, in the Big 12, and one of the young men that has had a brilliant year, and he was a hell of a player, and didn't get as much time when Baylor won the national title in 21, but L.J. Crier, that game he had Saturday night, there were other games when he's hit clutch free throws, but I thought that was one of his better moments, and he's had a bunch of them. Yeah,
he's had a bunch of them. He has just been, and I don't know why he left Scott, and I don't fully understand because there's 2 coaches in America that do the best job at developing kids, and that's Scott and Kelvin. Now, they couldn't be more polar opposite. Programs, personnel, could not be more opposite. And so I don't know why LJ thought he needed to make the change. Sorry for Scott that he did. I'm thrilled for us he did. He has been, man, what an incredible young man. And he's grown into this quiet leadership role. And he when he first showed up, he was deferring too much and he shied away from being the man. And he didn't have to be with who we've had in the past. But even at the start of this year, so many times I would leave a game and he'd have 18 points and I'd leave thinking, yeah, they could have done more. Man, has he developed it? He's been I'll tell you the best story about him is I'm calling a game and it was maybe in December and a Big 12 official that, has called games for 15, 20 years. he's standing in front of the table, and LJ shooting a free throw or something, and it live in the game. He turned around and looked at me, reached over the table, and put his finger on, my notes spread out, put his finger on LJ's name, and just smiled and went, "Wow." And I thought, okay, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely really cool.
That's a pretty cool endorsement.
Reed, I think he just wanted to be at home. I mean, more or less, his family wanted at home. He wanted to be at home, and that was the crux of it, and probably some NIL too. That could have been a better offer.
Yeah, I've heard that, but we don't have a bunch of NIL money. We don't have the kind of money you guys do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. So,
but here's the deal. Kelvin coaches those kids so hard. I mean, you got to really want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we recruit a kid, I go, yeah, well, let's see. Let's see if he can take it.
And I'll tell you, I think we were all a little bit surprised that he took to it so well. Because of the different styles. I was a little bit surprised.
I agree.
Yeah, I was. because of the style that I think he kind of wanted to play. When we heard he was going to Houston, it was more like, oh, well, I mean, that's not, and again, it just worked out. It just worked out.
Yeah, it's been a perfect fit. He is incredibly underrated. His on the ball defense has been excellent. I mean, and I anticipate he and Uzan and Emmanuel. I think everyone will take a turn on Braden Smith tonight. But I have been so impressed with him as a young man, and his what he's brought to this team, and he is beloved. I mean, man, people talk about him with a reverence, and that's unusual for somebody who's by nature as quiet as he is.
You mentioned
he's not demonstrative. He doesn't get emotional, but man, he is. I'm a big fan of LJ.
Yeah, if you see an emotional on his face, it's like a rarity. You better take a picture of it because it's just kind of more of a blank stare and not a negative way. Juwan Roberts, smooth as silk. I know that's like Kelvin's other son that he didn't have. But the guy also, and I'd love to talk about, he just looks like he's always so smooth. And I've always talked about a lefty. He's hard to find and handle. And Emmanuel Sharp seems to be, where you mentioned Tugler about what he does, but is Emmanuel Sharp kind of the straw that stirs the drink?
But for a busted ankle, and he played through it for about 4 weeks. I may not have it exact right. He'd have been the Big 12 Player of the Year. I'm telling you, he was playing at a level where he was maybe 1 or 2 in the country in 3-point shooting. He's the most physical, tough kid. And it's funny, Kelvin describes how he says, oh yeah, he falls hard. I was like, he what? Yeah, he falls hard. I'm thinking he falls hard. And then you watch him play and he just splats when he hits. And it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. But so he's number 1 or 2 in the country in 3-point shooting. He excels at drawing contact, and he's a 90% free throw shooter. And he is our best defender. That kid is, I did not anticipate him developing into what he's developed into. And you look at him, he's not ripped and cut like LJ or even Milos. You look at him, he's not pudgy, but he doesn't look the part. That kid will get by you in the blink of an eye, and he is. I don't know that I can say he's our best player, but I'm just telling you. But for that ankle injury, he'd have been the Player of the Year.
Houston has been to the Final Four. Of course, you were a part of the clump of them in 82, 83, 84. But 21, they were in the Final Four. In fact, LJ was on that Baylor team. Is even the word thirsty for winning this thing the right word for Houston?
I don't know. We've been there 6 times. So Elvin Hayes and Don Chaney went twice. We went 3 times, and then the most recent group went. And I'll be honest with you, you make it to the Sweet 16, and any of the 16 teams can win it. You get to the Final Four, and you're playing with house money.
Mm-hmm.
The best team doesn't always win. The best team's going to win is Duke. But the best team doesn't always win. And so I don't, it's funny because at the start of the season, people are like, hey, we're going to make it to the Final Four. I was like, dude, tap the brakes. Look, let's get through the Big 12 and let's get in the tournament. But if you're going to measure success, you know, by making it to the Final Four, then you're going to be really, really frustrated. And if you're going to measure it by winning the thing, then you know, come on, man. that's so the answer to your question is, I don't sense that. I do sense that these guys, they have the ability to win it. But you got to be good and you got to be lucky. And everybody's like, oh, you don't have to be lucky. Yeah, you do. You know, Jamal Shedd twisting his ankle in the first half against Duke. Martin Besser, you know, twisting his ankle. Terrence Arsenault tearing his Achilles. Like, yeah, you do. You got to be lucky. And so far, right now, you know, we're healthy. So it's going to be a really fun run. I don't know if we can. I think we can beat Purdue, but man, I keep looking down at Rick Barnes' Tennessee team, and man, that's going to be a basketball game.
When you guys have Phi Slamma Jamma reunions, do you have to like remind everybody about you were pulling the weight and being the guy who, if it wasn't for you, no one would have the basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I carried those guys.
I mean, listen, I know that like Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler and all this are like household names, but you know they wouldn't be without you, Reed.
Hey, I spent my entire career going, yeah, I'll get you next time. Yeah, no, I'll get it to you next time. I was like, Reed, did you not see me? I was open. Yeah, Dream, I'll get it to you next time. My entire career was okay. Yeah, Clyde, I got you. I saw you. I got you next time.
I love watching Hakeem Olajuwon play basketball. I was in the Tyler, East Texas market for like 30 years. Guy Lewis, of course, was from ARP, Texas. Legendary. Did a few sit-down interviews with him. What kind of an impact did he have on you? And obviously, he had a certain style compared to what you see now with Houston and Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah. Golly, what a great question that we could spend an hour on. It's amazing because you if you ever listen to Otis Birdsong, who look, Elvin's the greatest that ever played at U of H, and Hakeem is 1B, if not 1A. But before you get to any of the other great ones, it's Otis Birdsong. And you hear Otis Birdsong talk about the impact that Guy Lewis had on his life and the role he played and the discipline, which is not a word that is usually associated with Coach Lewis and his teams, but just the impact he had as a man on this young black kid. Everyone, Elvin and Don Chaney integrated the South along with Haskins' team at UTEP. But at the exact same time was Chaney and Elvin. But you talk about the racial challenges and you just listen to the love that Otis Birdsong has for Guy Lewis. And I tell everybody, I feel the same way. I was a rich white kid from Memorial. And he had the same impact on my life. And the fact that he could take, the most unathletic kid that ever played at U of H, and he sat me down, I was struggling with trying to fit in. He said, "Hey, Reed, you do you. Let me put it all together." And I'm thinking, man, how am I going to be on the floor with Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon and Larry Mishaw and Mike? I was like, I can't fit in here. And he just looked at me and said, "Look me in my eyes. You do you. I'll put it together. I'll figure it out." And man, it's just amazing. It's amazing that I got to be a part, that God picked me up and put me on a team that now 42 years later, people still talk about. Mm-hmm. It's like, come on, man, that's not real.
By the way, one of our viewers, Christopher Myers, said he's a fraternity brother of yours and wanted me to say hi to you.
All right, man. That's a small world. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been, but I wanted to make sure that I passed that along. He sent me a text and wanted to throw that up with you. And Reed, thanks for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. Love to see if Kelvin can take this, obviously win tonight and then move on And then Texas Tech in the Big 12 with a couple of teams if Houston can win, and just see what happens this weekend into the Final Four. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, good talking to you guys.
Reed Gettis, former Houston guard, part of that Phi Slamma Jamma, 3 consecutive Final Fours, as he mentioned. A couple of years they went with Elvin Hayes and Don Chaney, and now trying to get there. They were there in 21, and now trying to get there. But they got to win tonight and then again this weekend to be a part of that. Retired stockbroker, fraternity brother in Houston guard Reed Gettis. We're now joined by Mickey Spagnola, who joins us. DallasCowboys.com. Mickey on a Friday, staying a little bit late for us. Thank you, sir, very much for your time.
No, that was great. I enjoyed listening to that.
Yeah, you and I, he's like, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember. No, I am. I'm 4 years older than Reed Gettis. You remember that 83 team, Mickey, that had Hakeem Olajuwon and Drexler and Michael Young and Reed Gettis, among others?
So that would have been the 83 season, 84 tournament. I was trying to remember.
They lost to Jim Valvano.
Right.
That was the 82-83 season. They were like 33-3, whatever, and that's the famous, what was it, Lorenzo Charles moment or whoever it was that had the little tip-in dunk. And Hakeem kind of got lost in space.
It wasn't even a tip-in. It was an air ball that he caught.
Yes.
If you remember.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. They ran the table in the Southwest Conference and were 16-0. Benny Anders and many others. Alvin Franklin. That brings back some memories for you and me and others as well. All right, Mickey, anything at all in the NFL this week, Cowboys or otherwise, that caught your attention? And kind of a quiet time. People are still looking at free agencies, but kind of a little bit of a just kind of things are status quo?
Well, yeah, I think so, because you know what's happening right now, you guys, is that everybody's waiting, not the players, but the teams are waiting for the prices to come down on some of these guys that are still out there, names that, you know, some of them we know, but they're either waiting for somebody to have an injury or not wanting to go to training camp, I'm meaning veteran free agents, and then sign something at the last minute. So the teams are waiting for the price to go down, and I think some of the veterans that are still out there are basically waiting because they don't want to go to training camp. The surprising thing is, how much money are the Giants going to spend on a quarterback, right?
As much as it takes, Mickey.
and maybe draft one too, right?
Yeah.
So you can add to the pot, and they'll have about 4 guys and see if someone could play. So, yeah, other than that, no, nothing really surprising. I know the Cowboys coaching staff, front office has been busy these last couple days, going to pro days at A&M, LSU, Ohio State. They had a couple guys at UT for that pro day workout on Tuesday. That, by the way, I went to, you guys. You'd be proud of me. And so, yeah, I think there is a little bit of a lull, but then things will pick up because, remember, the Cowboys have a new coach, so they can start their offseason program a week or so ahead of all the other teams that had some stability.
So, Mickey, we are about a month to the draft, a little bit less right now. And you, a couple years ago, really honed in on Micah Parsons, and we're like, this is the guy. Like, if there was a guy you'd have to take that could really make a difference for this team, it's Micah Parsons. And a lot of people were talking about defensive backs that year, like, oh man, you got to get Pat Surtain or Horn, like those guys. And they were picking at 11, which is just one spot above where they're picking now. At 12, in a draft that probably has at max 17 guys that every team would put as a first-round grade on, and I think maybe less than that. But they're going to get a guy with a first-round grade if they stay at 12, more than likely. Who is the guy that you really feel or some of the guys that will be there for them to make that could help this team? I mean, a Micah Parsons standard is ridiculous, but help this team.
Right, yeah. And you know, the Micah Parsons standard would be the Penn State linebacker, right, who could go in the top 3, and he might be the best player in the draft, although I see he may have a little Micah Parsons in him. I mean, doesn't sound like he wants to work out for everybody. He just wants them to trust him that he's healthy. We'll see what happens there. When you get to 12, look, they sent, from my understanding, they sent a heavy crew to Ohio State. Now, Ohio State's got a couple running backs, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if everybody thinks they should go that high in the draft if Genty's gone, but I think those guys are pretty good. And they've got some other players that are awfully good. I was thoroughly impressed with two of the wide receivers at UT. The more I see of Matthew Golden, the more I really love this guy. And look, CeeDee Lamb's coming back from an injury. And they don't have a number 2 guy now that Brandon Cook signed with the Saints. So a wide receiver that can run, what did he do at the combine? 4.29. Mm-hmm. And then Bond's pretty darn good himself. And then if you start looking at defensive linemen, the guys at Texas A&M, they certainly need defensive ends. I know they signed Dante Fowler Jr., but he's a kind of a rotation guy. They're counting on Sam Williams to come back from the ACL, but that doesn't mean he's coming back where he once was. So a defensive end that can rush the quarterback, I'm good with that. I don't know who that guy is, but yeah, that's certainly. So there's 3 spots of need right there. And I don't know that they go offensive line, but, with the 44th pick in the draft, you ought to be able to find another guy that can almost be a sure starter on day 2. So I think that I don't know that they've zeroed in on any one guy just yet. They still got the 30 visits to go, the Dallas Day stuff still to go. And so, I think it's wide open right now, Paul.
Mickey, did you say you went to a couple of pro days?
We went to the UT one.
All right.
It was Tuesday.
All right. Well, they're loaded, obviously, with a lot of different people on both sides of the football. You mentioned Matthew Golden. What are your thoughts about Quinn Ewers?
Well, after watching him work out and talking to a few people there, he did a heck of a job playing through that oblique, and I think they called it a strain. I was told it was a tear, and he played through it, and it had a lot to do with his inability or seemingly inability to put a lot of zip on his passes. Well, he had a 59 throw session on Tuesday afternoon at UT, completed 50 of them. There were 4 drops, 5 incompletions, and a couple of those were towards the end where I'm thinking at some point not only your arms getting tired, but you're getting mentally tired from concentrating, right? Well, he had a lot of zip on the ball, and he had a lot of the accuracy I was impressed with, especially for the short, mid-range, mid-deep balls that he was throwing. Now, he hung up a couple deep ones towards the end, and you're going, well, you need to fire that. You can't just throw a rainbow up there on a go route. But I was impressed more so watching him in person and the speed of his passes than watching on TV. It was a different ball game. And the fact that he was basically running that thing for the wide receivers. So I think his command, he's not going to go in the first 2 rounds probably, but 4th round, 5th round, if you can get a guy like that, that seemingly is smart, knows how to play the quarterback position and groom him to be your backup of the future, I could certainly see that happening for him. But I was impressed with his workout, to say the least.
Mickey, they are going to, probably draft a quarterback this year. I mean, when I say probably, like maybe they just get to a spot where they're like, well, we don't like any of these guys that are left, kind of a thing, because they're not going to draft one early. But veteran quarterback-wise, Will Grier is there, and I know they really like him, and they like what he brings. Is he maybe in that spot to be kind of what Cooper Rush was? Because it doesn't appear right now that they're looking to bring in another veteran.
Well, I think they are.
Okay.
They want to bring in a more veteran guy.
Okay.
You know, you can say he looks like Cooper Rush, but he hadn't played much at all.
Yeah.
So I would be willing to allow him to compete, but I'd sure like to sign a guy that's started some games in the NFL for a 1-year deal, kind of a prove it thing, with incentives. And I think there's still a couple of those guys out there. I heard that they were interested in Brissett, but not for what he signed for. So maybe the price comes down. But again, you know, if they're starting off-season workouts here in a week or two, Dak Prescott's not taking part in it. So what do you got? You know, Crier can't do the whole thing himself. So I would think they got to get in another quarterback, if for nothing else, for practice purposes at this point.
Well, why would you practice Dak when you're going to trade him, Mickey?
Yeah.
He's
you
going
guys
to
help me. Where and when did that come up?
What is that on the screen?
So,
is that something Garrett's got?
Yeah.
That was. I thought I would throw that out at you.
And Mickey, okay, here's what I'll tell you. So the other day I get on Twitter and I see a guy that I've actually met at a couple Super Bowls.
That was your first mistake, getting on Twitter. But go ahead.
But I see this video and the guy, he takes his glasses off like this and he's like, "Look, I'm telling you. Right now, I just got off with a phone with a very high Brown source that says they are about to pull the trigger for Dak Prescott." And the guy did that because he's a guy who needed Twitter views, or views or something. Because immediately, so then, you know, everybody, you know, they have to run it down. If you're a legitimate beat reporter, you have to run it down. And everybody who actually had contact with either team was like, no, this is like, first of all, it's outside of Dak Prescott, impossible for the Browns to make happen, given all the money they have locked up with a guy who's not going to play for them ever again in Deshaun Watson. They can't do that right now. Second of all, Dak just signed this contract less than a year ago that's pretty clear about no trade, you know, all these other things before you even get to the salary cap ramifications of it. So even if Dak Prescott woke up in the morning just thinking like, my heart's always been right by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it is nigh impossible to get that done this year. So it was just BS.
This year or next year, or maybe the year after that.
Yeah.
And you said put the salary cap aside. No, that's first and foremost, because it would cost them about $80 million in dead money against the salary cap if you trade them. And you can't stretch that out over 2 years. If you trade a guy, all the dead money counts now, immediately. And the Cowboys couldn't cover 50 million of it. So it's just ridiculous when I see stuff like, I heard somebody talking about it on the radio and they were trying to dismiss it. You know, I got the question, and it's like, if I'm trading Dak Prescott, I need 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
that was, you just never know. And I actually saw somebody that covers Cleveland said, this is not a clicks and views guy, and maybe he just had a bad day. All right. You reached out to me earlier this week. You wanted to get our Shiloh Sanders interview, which we thoroughly enjoyed. I guess that was on Thursday when he sat down with us as we started the show. You were able to listen to him. I really impressed with the young man. Your thoughts about it, but also you were using that with some of the quotes for what?
I was going to use it in my notes column. I don't think I used it because when I went to the UT Pro Day, I had so much. I said, well, this will save. But I was just impressed how he answered your questions. Now, the questions were really good, so that helps get good answers. But he had somewhat of a personality. I liked the stuff he said about his dad. And it's like, you know, when you guys were talking about the 40 time, and Deion always would say, you know, I'm 4'2" in the 40 when I wake up for breakfast, right? And he goes, I want to see proof of that. I'm not taking that at his word. I just thought his nature was really good, and I didn't expect it. I expected him. I don't know why, because I don't know much about him or anything, but I expected him to kind of big time you guys like I'm too big for this. but I kind of liked the way he handled things, and I thought that was good. Sometimes, you learn more about a quarterback when you hear these interviews. Like I heard the quarterback, the running back at Ohio State, not Judkins.
Henderson. Yeah.
I heard his interview from the combine, and I'm going, I like this guy. They asked him about, because Judkins had transferred to Ohio State, and they asked him, well, were you worried? You stayed. And he goes, I don't mind competing. Let him come in. It's going to help the team. But a lot of guys would have said, oh, I'm in the portal. I'm out of here, right? The same thing happened with me a couple of years ago with Carolina's Bryce Young, Alabama. So he won the Davey O'Brien Award, and they were having the award ceremony in Fort Worth like they normally do. And normally the guys here at the ticket are at that, and they interview the winner. Well, he didn't have time for it, but he said, give me a call tomorrow. We'll set something up, and I'll do it on the phone. So they called him up. And they asked him to kind of explain how busy his day was the previous day. And he pointed out that, they had a workout at Alabama. And by time he got on an airplane to go to Fort Worth, it was 5:30 or 6. He was supposed to be there to speak at 8. By time they finished, it was 9:30 or 10. By time he got back to Tuscaloosa, it's 2, 3 in the morning. And he had a morning weightlifting workout and then a class. And one of the guys kind of laughed, and he said, I'm sure Coach Saban would have, excused you. And he goes, you don't know Coach
Saban. Yeah.
And the other part of it was the reason we're held to this standard, the reason I get to do what I do is because of how we have to respond to our responsibilities. And if we don't do that, then I'm not at that award ceremony. And I was just so impressed with him as a person. And I got done listening to it, and I said, I want that guy on my team. Now, who knows how this is going to turn out in Carolina, but it was a much better second year than a first year. And they actually maybe give him some talent around him to help him out.
I was thoroughly impressed with Shiloh. Yeah. I really was. And the fact he goes, there's video and pictures of Jesus, but I can't find my dad running 4.2 in the 40.
Hey, Mickey, I'll tell you, if we had been the ones who asked Shiloh, I do think he would have said no. But
I know that also because I was there when she asked him.
Yeah, so Faith asked, so that's how I really think that the odds were much higher because Faith
actually. I'll tell. Colorado had a little bit to do with that.
Yeah,
because we've been trying to get people, and it hadn't been working out, but it had a little bit to do with that. But yes, I'm sure Faith had a lot to do with that.
It helped because
I saw when it went down, and I said, "Oh, he's gonna go."
Yeah. We're taking her to Big 12 Media Days in July and the Super Bowl in San Francisco because she will be a rock star for us.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If she asked me that, hey, those guys want to do the interview with you over again, you have time? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, man, have a great weekend. You went to the Rangers opening game. I know it didn't end well. Paul's a big Red Sox fan. Abreu's killing the Rangers, but just being there, that stadium, and then the atmosphere of opening day. I know they had the roof closed, though, right? Is that right?
Yeah, they had it open for, I think, batting practice or whatever, and then when we got in there a little after 2, it was closing. So, yeah, it closed. The two pitchers were great.
Yes, they were.
Sox, how do you say the guy's name? Crochet?
Yeah.
And Evaldi? Yeah.
And I thought he was on the verge of getting knocked out every inning, and he hung in there. And Evaldi pitched a hell of a game.
Absolutely.
2-2 going into the 9th, and then the Rangers. Yeah, it was like, oh, I've seen this before with the relief staff. But yeah, it was a really good game if you like good pitching, and those guys doing a good job against those two teams. Hit the ball right. Unfortunately for the Rangers, they just can't get Abreu out.
No, they can't. Not many people can, but they surely can. Mick, thank you, buddy. Have a great weekend. Thanks for staying late for us.
No problem.
Mickey Spagnola with us on 365 Sports. One final note, and then we get to our interview with DJ Giddens from Big 12 Pro Days and Paul's top 5 around the corner. Justin Blackman, Oklahoma State wide receiver, All-American, had 122 catches and 1,500-plus yards and 18 touchdowns one year. He will be inducted, the 6th player inducted into the Oklahoma State Cowboy Ring of Honor. The others are Bob Fenimore from the 70s, was a halfback, Barry Sanders, Thurman Thomas, Leslie O'Neal, running back Terry Miller, who was fantastic, and now Justin Blackman will be into the Oklahoma State Cowboys Ring of Honor.
That's awesome. I've got a couple of breaking news things. Drake is going to hire South Dakota State head coach Eric Henderson to replace them. And Craig, I'm sure you know this about the Syracuse and Colorado attempt to have a spring game. The NCAA has said no for this year because too many other teams are too deep into spring football to make it happen. So it wasn't a no forever, but I think maybe this got the ball rolling on that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we were talking about a bunch of teams who are already 3 weeks into the spring ball.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know at this point how much time they would even have to do that. I think it's less about this year, honestly, and more about just the long-term future of spring football. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. I didn't know how they were going to fit that in at this point, but good to have just some final word on that so we can move on, and the conversation won't stop. It'll just now be all focused on what they do in the next few months and whether that gets passed as a new rule. Did we ever ask, who's even in charge of the AFCA at this point?
Craig Bowl.
Yeah, was that a conversation? I don't remember.
We brought up, we did a lengthy interview with him. I believe we got into spring drills and some of those who were pushing it back.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember if that was part of the conversation or not. But, I mean, that's obviously going to be a part of the conversation moving forward. It's too hot a topic, and too many people with some weight have talked about, the changes that they would like to see. So, I mean, that's good. I was going to comment on what were you talking about before that?
Oklahoma State, Justin Blackman.
Okay. So Justin Blackman was an incredible player. I mean, one of the best wide receivers that I ever watched, and I don't think he gets his due these days because his NFL career was very forgettable because he couldn't leave the booze alone. He couldn't stay out of trouble, and he couldn't not be in Oklahoma riding around, doing stuff he wasn't supposed to be doing, unfortunately for him. But the good news is I haven't seen anything in the last few years on Justin Blackman that's been another arrest or another this or another that's negative. It seems as though, even though he's been out of the limelight, and maybe it's not as much the case in Stillwater, y'all can fill me in on that, but I know that I personally haven't seen much about him, but when I have here recently, it's been for good things like him being honored years after his career was over with things like this. So I hope he has his life in order. It would appear that he does because, again, there's been a lack of, some of that headlines that got him early on in his NFL career. So that's great, man. I mean, the guy clearly had an issue or issues, and he was wrestling with demons, and they were getting the better of him. But he's at a place clearly now where he's being honored for the incredible career that he had that, again, I don't think probably enough people remember because it got so overshadowed by what happened in the pros with Jacksonville and so on. But he was a badass, and that's great. And what an honor, especially with such a small group of people. When you think about Oklahoma State football, they've had some really good players. So to have that small of a group that's received this honor, he's certainly deserving of it, and that speaks to just what a great player he was.
Yeah, he had a lot of troubles coming out of college. There's no question about it. And the good news is, so Oklahoma State's going to honor him, I'm sure, during the football season. And last year he was honored by the College Football Hall of Fame.
Right.
So I hope, it may be timing and all that, a certain amount of years, et cetera, but maybe that's also those who are honoring him know that perhaps Justin Blackman's doing pretty well. We hope so.
Yeah, I just think he's been out of the spotlight, which is not a bad thing when you were in the spotlight. So, yeah, I don't know any particulars about, how life is, but obviously he's doing well enough that they're honoring him, and that's awesome. He deserves it for his play on the field and what a great Cowboy he was. And, do Y'all remember how good Justin freaking Blackman was? Like,
hell yeah.
But he doesn't get brought up in the who are the greatest receivers you've seen? Like, eventually he might, depending on who you're talking to. Like, I know for me, for a long time, it was Larry Fitzgerald. And Paul probably remembers when he went to College Station
and just worked
and made his entire name basically in one afternoon.
I was, let's see, well, that would have been in like 03, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad was at that game and called me and said, "Hey, do you know who Larry Fitzgerald is?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's at Pitt." And I had been working all day, so I hadn't really seen what happened. I had just seen a score. And, yeah, I was like, yeah, he's really good. He's like,
he's a freak.
His actually, you bet your ass he is.
Oh,
Ruined my day.
Basically one-handed beat A&M. It felt like that day. I was there too. He had 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards. He was a badass. But I think of him, but other guys from that sort of same era of growing up, like Justin Blackman, definitely belongs in that conversation. So yeah. He was awesome, and that's great for him.
Maybe he's got everything together. We hope he does. We had one interview from Big 12 Pro Days that we have not used. DJ Giddens, the running back, who is not someone that talks a lot, but he gave us a lot of good time. Here's that conversation with the former K-State star. Had a run of running backs, and the Big 12's loaded with them. We've mentioned that before. DJ Giddens from K-State joins us on 365 Sports. Good to see you, man. Love your style. Heck of a year. What's this like? All this, your tension, your career, your future, and the unknown, and yet the fact you're going to play at the next level?
Really, I just been praying on it for the most part. Just keep my faith strong, and that's all I can do. I can't really think too much in the future about where I'm gonna be. Just wherever I go, I know I just got to excel wherever I go.
You have a very great natural running style. You get your shoulders square kind of fast and natural. Was it natural, or did you have to get coached to that? Because you get upfield pacing this way better than most people I've seen.
Like you said, it did come natural, but it's a little bit of both. You just got to keep getting better at it for the most part. We did a lot of training on the off season before this last season, last couple of months. Like, we've been training for sure.
You had a huge year statistically. Did you feel like you left any meat on the bone? I mean, how'd you feel overall about just the way you closed things out there in Manhattan?
For sure. It's always more I could have did. I feel like it was a solid season, though, but it's definitely left some more out there that I could have displayed,
Chris Kleiman. We've had him on many times. We've seen him in person at various events. Love the guy. What was it like with him and your relationship with him? And what kind of coach is he?
First of all, you're a good coach. Like, he cared about the team. He put the players first. So like, let's say we not feeling 100, we might be sore from the day before. Like, he'll take care of us the next day and make sure, like, by the end of the week, though, we're going to perform at our best. So I'll say, like, he put the players first. He always tells us it's our team, and I got a good relationship with him. Every time I see him, I say what's up,
You had Dylan Edwards in the backfield with you. You obviously Avery Johnson with that, like, his ability to run. When you guys were out there on the field, knowing that you can control the game with the running game and 3, maybe even 4 different guys, what kind of confidence did that give you?
Like I was just going to say, that's all it brings, just a whole bunch of confidence. You just go out there, play free. You ain't got to worry about who got the ball in their hands. Just somebody going to make a play,
DJ, what do you want to prove out here? Being a part of this event, what did you think of just kind of the makeup of it all and being around the guys? And, what do you want to show in front of all the scouts?
I guess I'll say my personality. A lot of people, everybody know I don't talk too much, but you know what I'm saying? Like, just showing I could talk if I want to talk, and I'm coachable, and just going throughout the interviews for the most part. Everything on the field, I feel like it's going to take care of itself wherever I'm going to go. I'm going to learn. I'm going to be my best wherever I go. So I really just say the off-the-field stuff.
You like to let your play do the talking, but there is that element, right, of the NFL. And, a little bit in college, you had to do media and stuff, but not your favorite part. It's not everybody's favorite part, right? Yeah. Let your play do the talking. Yeah, I got that.
So,
what is it like with you outside of, like, this environment or playing football, behind the scenes with your fellows or whoever? Are you a different personality then?
Nah, I say I'm the same me. So if you ask somebody about me from high school and somebody that know me from college, they probably say the same thing. Like, I'm the same me.
What was the hardest question someone's asked you about yourself that's not about football?
Hardest question somebody that asked me? I ain't gonna lie, I ain't been too crazy questions. Like, it'll be like random questions or something like that. Like, can I live in a big city?
Mm-hmm.
Different things like that. And I'll be like, yeah, I could adapt anywhere I go. So, like, it just be like random questions like that, you know?
DJ Giddens, Kansas State, running back with us on 365 Sports. What was it like after winning the Pop-Tarts Bowl?
Oh, yeah, it was cool. You know, that was a cool bowl game. That's probably one of the coolest bowl games I've been to, so that was a great experience.
Did you dive into that thing when it came out of that machine, whatever it was?
Nah, I ain't even see it coming out.
Coach Kleiman saw it. I know that.
Yeah. What did you learn from Deuce Vaughn, who plays here, right here in Dallas?
For real, I learned a lot from Deuce Vaughn. That's why I be telling everybody, like, the first year I came out there, you know, I was just really just spectating. I don't say too much. I'm just listening and watching. So I said, like, route running, the way he take care of his business, routine, recovery, studying, film, like, just detail-oriented. So a lot of stuff like that.
Who was the running back when you were growing up that you thought you ran like or wanted to be like?
I'd say Emmitt Smith.
That's not a bad one.
There you go. See him all around here, huh?
Yeah, they just right up over here, a couple of
22
down.
right over there.
You know, he wasn't tall, but he was incredibly balanced, had great vision, obviously tougher than nails to get all those yards, and he played with shoulders separated and whatever. What about him? I may have just said that, but what about him, watching him play, that you loved?
Really, like what you just said, just out there, he looked like he just playing free. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing I always want to do, just play free, be me. He got a good game. I can model my game after him for sure, but just playing free.
Who's the better runner with the ball, you or Avery Johnson?
You said better running?
Yeah.
Sure, we both make some plays, so it go either way.
Yeah, he can go now, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he can go. He's set up, and what they're set up to do now, they've been consistent. What's next for them, you think?
Next for K-State, like I said, just everybody just going into their position for the most part. Just don't get complacent. That's the main thing. After that, like they can do whatever they want. I ain't gonna lie.
Good luck over these next few weeks into the draft and into your next career, your next journey, and you never know where you might end up, but I bet you're going to have fun when you get there.
Most definitely.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate you.
DJ Giddens, Kansas State. This is 365 Sports.
You might ask yourself what functional mushrooms are good for. Whether it's lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, shiitake, reishi, they all serve a purpose.
You have ones for neurological health, ones for sleeping and gut health and all these different areas. They pack a powerful punch.
Functional mushrooms are, of the millions of mushrooms and fungi out there, the ones that we can actually ingest and benefit from as humans.
Like all adaptogens, they kind of adapt to what you need at the time that you need them.
We don't even really know that we're suffering. We just don't quite feel right. That's where these adaptogens come in and really start to close the gap and really start getting us closer to how we want to feel.
Functional mushrooms have definitely re-energized me and helped me face each day with a new vigor for life.
Learn ways that functional mushrooms can help you. Go to getumble.com.
You spent hours selecting your patio sofa. Choosing that grill would have taken weeks. Probably your car needed way more time. For sure, you would have spent months mulling over that pool of yours. Protecting your prized possessions needs no time, though. Just visit coversandall.com, create a custom size per your requirements, pick a fabric and personalize your cover, and leave the rest to us. Premium protection for all that you love.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Happy Friday, everybody. It's Paul Catalina's Top 5 brought to you by Ticket Club. These are guys who can take over a game. So some of these are obvious. These are the stars of the Sweet 16. Number 5, Caleb Love. He is absolutely someone who can lock in, just get completely focused on, I've got to go make this happen for the Wildcats, and does it. He absolutely just does it. And early in the season, like as went Caleb Love, so went the Arizona. They've been a lot better since then. They can be streaky. They can be a little bit in and out of games, but they've been locked in the second half of the season because Caleb Love hasn't had too many off nights, and he is experienced in March. He's won a lot of big games in March. He was on that North Carolina team that made the unexpected run to the finals and was 24 minutes away from winning it before they collapsed. And what he meant to that team, what he means to this team, he is someone who can absolutely dominate a game. And remember, that was a few years ago. That was when he was a young player. He's got a lot more mileage now and experience than he did then. Number 3, LJ Crier at Houston. When he was here at Baylor, he showed potential to be able to do this. He was a scorer. He could shoot it, was not a great defender. And his family wanted to be back closer to home. He wanted to be back closer to home in Houston. He's from Houston, so he went there. And Kelvin Sampson got the maximum amount of defense out of him that you can get, and also turned him into a much more consistent and regulated shooter. Sometimes at Baylor, he would just kind of be reckless, but he was always a dead-eye shooter, and he had big moments. Like he's won a title before with Baylor. He was a freshman on that team. Had a big moment making a shot before halftime in the Elite Eight, I want to say, that really kind of set Baylor on a roll. He has pelts on the wall already. And when it comes time to, all right, let's go make some threes, this dude can do it. He's got ice in his veins. Very, very impressive player and very impressive growth from LJ Crier over his years in college. Number 3, Walter Clayton Jr. at Florida. I should probably have him higher on this list. Garrett and I talked about him on the triple option on Thursday about how he's in this like Steph Curry generation of players, and he's modeled his game after Steph, and you can see it. His degree of difficulty on shots is ridiculous, and he makes them. He's probably the best pure shooter in the country. There might be some that you can argue with him with, but he is Florida's first ever unanimous All-American. And this is a team that under Billy Donovan won back-to-back titles and didn't have a unanimous All-American. Joakim Noah was on that team, not unanimous All-American. Walter Clayton, the first one for Florida, a team that has got a really good basketball history in their past. That's for a reason. He is absolutely dead-eyed, good, great shooter, and he's been a problem for everybody who's played the Gators this year. Number 2, Janai Broome at Auburn. If you say, well, Paul, that's obvious. Yes, it is obvious, but I do have to mention him because best pound-for-pound player in the country, in my opinion, even over our number 1 guy who can take over a game because he's older and a little more experienced. But Janai Broome, man, when you watch this guy get going, nobody can defend him. You just cannot defend him. The best thing you can do is get in his way a little bit. And when he is going, Auburn is tough to beat. Very, very tough to beat. They play great defense. It's a staple of Bruce Pearl teams. He's great on defense. He's great on offense, and he can run the game for you. Number 1, the presumptive number 1 overall pick in this year's NBA draft, more than likely, Cooper Flagg at Duke. Here's the thing. They can win and win easily without him. They showed it in the ACC tournament 2 weeks ago. But when he's in the game, it's just something you can't account for. There is no one who really matches up with him on defense because he can do so many things. He's quick around the basket. He's long. He's a great shooter. There's nowhere on the floor you can really defend him. So he's a huge problem. And he's a problem that defensively no one's been able to solve all year long. Yes, Duke played in a down ACC this year, but they only lost 1 ACC game. They didn't have a dumb loss. They lost to a good Clemson team. They don't have cheap ones. They didn't have losses to NC State and Miami and FSU. Like when they lost the teams that were towards the bottom of the league or played the teams at the bottom of the league, they won. And the biggest reason for that, in my opinion, other than depth, is that Cooper Flagg is a matchup nightmare that no one has figured out yet. Now, in the NBA, somebody will figure him out. They figure everybody out. But for right now, you're not figuring this guy out. There's not you just have to hope that you play your best game against Duke and they start making mistakes, which they haven't all year. They are so well coached, and this guy is so difficult to defend. I'm not sure that there's maybe 1 or 2 teams that can get them in this tournament. As a matter of fact, I did pick them in the Final Four to lose to Houston because I think Houston is the only team that can defensively figure out this dude. That's going to do it for the top 5. We are off into the weekend. Have a great one, everybody.